Then let's go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Okay.
We'll get a roll call and verification of quorum.
All right. Ash Shake,
Here.
Sarah Cornely, she is absent and excused. Chelsea Campbell,
Here.
Brian O'Connor. Oh,
Right there.
Brian O'Connor. Lisa Cunningham,
Here.
Bob Broadus.
Here.
Adam Haid.
Here.
Candace Whitehouse.
Here.
Van Hempill.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Excellent. With that, let's approve the agenda. Does anyone have any issues with the agenda as presented?
On the attachment, it had the Article 4 in there.
Yeah.
That was on the agenda technically. Was
It-
did I read it too fast?
It was.
Okay,
4 and 5 after you finish with 3.
perfect.
Yeah, so we're gonna finish up the 3 and then go into 4 and 5.
Do you need a motion to approve?
Sure,
So moved.
Second.
excellent. Any opposed? Nope. Alright. Agenda is approved as written. Moving on to public comment. We have a 200% increase in our public attendance. So,
That's great.
does the public have any comment?
Sure, I do. I'm just gonna stay for public comment. I'm gonna go home. I've been really grateful that I've been able to watch this on YouTube, because I can watch it while I cook dinner and pause and rewind and pay attention to everything you guys are doing. So that's been really cool. I've also appreciated Ashraf's updates through the month. I'm planning on doing a piece about halfway through, just kind of where you guys have gotten to and kind of what you've talked about 3 months in. I don't think I need to be here for every meeting because I can watch it on YouTube. So I was just wondering, if I was coming down here to watch, would it be a problem if I started texting the commissioners, or would that be disruptive? Would that be sort of not considered very copacetic, to text commissioners while they're working? Because I wouldn't do that,
So
but
my only thought to that is if you text one commissioner, that commissioner has more information than anybody else in the room.
right, so we shouldn't be texting the commissioners while we're in the meeting? Okay. Because that would seem like it would seem kind of blur the lines.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to check that, but I just wanted to come in and say I really appreciate the job you guys are all doing. It's been really fascinating to watch. You guys know I was a huge advocate for it. And it's really cool to watch democracy in action, and I haven't seen anybody put any quests in to take over the world yet, so I think you guys are on the right track, it looks like nothing radical is coming up. So I just wanted to come down and say thank you. All right?
Thank
And
you.
then I'm going home and I can watch you on YouTube tomorrow. Don't need to watch tonight.
Any other comments from other members of the public? No?
Thank you guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Siobhan.
Then I think we can move on to general business. We can first of all go back to and do we have any comments on previously discussed articles on any of the stuff like the running draft? I know Hillary sent out an update, but it did not include section 3 because we hadn't completed it yet. So we're still, just the running draft still includes just 1 and 2 plus whatever we decide for 3. But does anyone have any go backs on any of the?
I do, Article 2, Section 2.02, number 2, I kind of feel that we should allow them to council to take office after the election's certified instead of making them wait till January. And if they decide that they wanna cancel that December meeting, they can do it. But by making them wait till January, we've taken that out of their hands.
Okay.
And if there's something that needs to be dealt with in December, they can deal with it.
What do they do today?
They take office right after the election, which is in April.
The December timeline
Yes,
makes things a
yeah.
little difficult.
Makes sense.
Okay, so does anyone have any other thoughts or ideas on that topic?
Ryan, you said if they decide to, who is they in that context?
I guess it would be current.
The current board of
The
trustees,
current.
if they have a meeting, then you seat people.
You see people, yeah, and don't make them wait.
Would that mean then their term is really December to November rather than January to December?
Could be.
I mean, yeah, it's still the same, I guess, number of calendar days, just shifted a month.
Yeah,
I was just going, it's kind of stuck with me for a while, and then going through, this, the home rule matrix table that was sent out. A lot of them just by ordinance, first meeting after election, first Monday following election, first meeting, you know, and I know some of these are not in November.
Right. So, Debbie, do you, I know we asked you, but like, how long does it typically take for the final certification of the election?
Certification usually happens,
Well, this time it happened November 29th.
November 29th.
Yeah.
So we would have just had the one December meeting.
yeah, and I remember when we had this discussion and Hillary said that sometimes the certification can be
Even more delayed.
even more delayed than that and not happen till after the first of the year, and I think that's why you put it in this way. I think that's what you talked about.
Just to build that buffer in anyways.
Right,
but I think, Brian, what you're saying is you want it to be, or proposing it be first meeting after certification
Yes,
rather than first meeting after first of the year.
yes.
Was it one of the points we brought up, the
We talked about it a
budget
little bit.
approval?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
The budget's approved in December,
Right.
which would be after certification.
Potentially.
Yeah, sometimes the budget is approved in November, so it can come earlier. And the new council can always change the budget after it's been adopted the earlier year.
But I thought your point, I'm talking too much. Your point is that if it does go into December, would the new council have enough information? Or,
I think that was my point back then, is seating brand new people right at the middle or the tail end of budget season, and in an environment where people are trying to get some stuff done at the very end of their terms. Not knowing what date the new council will take seats, this helped to at least establish that, and it was a January to January thing. I prefer it that way, but I can see Brian's point. We added a little bit of, I think maybe your point is we added a little complexity by saying January, or the new year. It says
First regular.
first regular meeting of the council in the new year following the certification. So the certification could go deeper into the new year too. Or are you just trying to remove?
I was just trying to not keep them from being seated or sooner if it's certified.
Can I step in here as a staff member? Providing more time for staff to prepare for the new incoming trustees, you know, having that 2 months to get everything set up would actually be easier on staff. Because then everything's all in a row. We could even have them have gone through some security trainings and things like that. Usually we're scrambling between when we certify our elections here and the next board meeting. It's like crazy.
it's very, very busy.
Yeah.
Well, and then to have that scramble happen in tail end of November or December is all, will add.
Yeah, especially if staff is on vacation or, you know, for the holidays or whatever, and, you know, they're leaving early or whatever, we could have be short-staffed as well, so, but
So the key benefit of having it January is a little bit more time to prepare for the new board. Downside is the newly elected members are waiting a little while to take over, which could be a benefit for them too. They can plan, they can make sure they have a holiday vacation and then come in refreshed. So, but there are cities and towns.
I've seen both. I've seen both ways, and I think during our discussion, we had kind of talked over a lot of these issues. Some of it's coming back after our extended break, but I think we had settled on January for many of these reasons, not including the giving the staff time, because we hadn't brought that up that time. So I'm still in favor of leaving it in January. If you want, we can have another vote on that just to add it as a, or
We can certainly wait on it too, let people chew on it for, it's not, this
Okay.
doesn't, I don't think it's gonna impact
Okay.
anything else further down the line.
No,
So-
the seating time shouldn't, but
It
we can, let me put it back on my list of stuff to track then, so we can kind of when we're going through our final reviews and stuff, we can bring it back up and discuss that.
Sorry, I'm getting some messages that people are having trouble with the audio, with the link, so I just wanted you all to know that I'm trying to work with Gabby on that.
Okay.
But
This
if
was
you,
on,
if you were
like-
getting that feedback from someone, they're saying it's echoing and they're having trouble with the link, so we'll keep working on it, but I just wanted you to know that
Okay.
the beginning of the recording might be.
Like, does that blue microphone need to be turned around so it's actually facing the room?
Gabby said she could hear us fine when we were beforehand, so. But Gabby, if you can hear us and the microphone needs to be turned, please let us know.
I think the video link sends you to a playlist and it might not behave properly.
Yeah.
She's actually broadcasting via Zoom right now. Because she had to switch because this box is not working.
Okay,
YouTube is not, so maybe she could.
alright, I'll let.
The good news is people are listening.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's carry on at least just going through our go backs while we're waiting on that. Did anyone else have any other topics to discuss again? Or wanna put back on our list for future discussion?
The compensation. So I couldn't remember where I had read it, I thought it was I couldn't find it at first when I was looking for it. And the current compensation is as an ordinance. And there's a lot more, but there is more in here under compensation than just the monetary amount. What is the thought about keeping any of this, or do we just go to a straight, here's your compensation?
I think like we had discussed, by putting a straight compensation number and then tagging it to the CPI the town uses, it's future proofed and it also then removes the ability of the town council to set their own compensation or for the future council.
So, but has anyone looked at the ordinance? What is
Oh, the current ordinance? No.
So it involves additional payments per meeting. There's they can participate in the medical program at their expense. There is a community center membership for the family. So I was just kind of running some rough numbers and basically what was proposed, if you take the maximum amount that someone could earn, it would be essentially doubling it. So should everything else be stripped out of it, of this current compensation package and just left with
That's a
mayor gets $1,500 a month, council gets $1,000 a month, and that's it.
If it's written in the charter, that would supersede existing ordinance from what I understand. Because you're setting that compensation.
But does that mean that this ordinance gets negated or canceled out? Because there's stuff in here that adds to that.
Right, we would have to specify, right, any
Yeah.
additional compensation of any types, if we wanted to do that. And I think it's interesting that you brought that up too, because Amy, you sent out the compensation in comparison to other towns. And it seems, I just ran through it kind of quickly, but it seems like we're really high in comparison to other towns.
Like now or with the
What
proposed?
we voted on and decided on seemed really high in comparison to others. We're low now, I think,
Yeah.
for sure, but
I mean, you could lower the amount and incentivize members to go to meetings by, what's done in here, it's mayor shall be eligible for additional payment, 25 is a little low per meeting.
yeah.
But you could incentivize them that way and lower the amount. I don't know, same thing, it doesn't have to be decided now.
Yeah.
Well, and would that even really matter if we put in an attendance policy? That would be your incentive too, right?
Yeah, that's what I was
Can't
thinking,
miss
is like we
meetings.
were talking about putting in the vacancy section, like how many missed meetings would mean that your office is vacant, so that would also be the incentive to actually attend meetings. It's like you don't show up, you're not involved anymore. But yeah, I think the way we settled on the compensation, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to revisit that just cause it was, let's settle on a number and then we can do some more research and talk about it as, you know, as we get more information. I hadn't thought about the additional benefits, I guess, is that something that all town staff gets, like the membership to the community center and so I mean, if we write it in the ordinance that they get this much money plus benefits as defined for normal town staff or employees, that would cover like the health package, health insurance and
It is different for the
It's different,
trustees
yeah.
because they have to pay the full, they can
Oh.
opt into it, but they have to pay the full,
okay,
kinda like Cobra.
yeah,
Whereas the town pays for a portion of ours and we have to pay a specified portion.
okay.
So it's
So
just,
they're not
it just,
considered actual employees, just that they're eligible to take part in the plan that you
Correct.
guys.
Is there another classification of employee that you have that would be similar, like contractor or something that
So no one else can optionally.
get a free rec center pass
No.
and buy into
just trustees.
just trustees?
But you guys do get the free rec center pass as well,
Yes.
so that's counted, okay. So if we wanted them to be able to take part in the insurance plan, then that would also have to be written in.
Boulder has something like that in their charter.
Boulder does?
But I
It's
mean,
fairly
you know,
new.
we could,
It's
it's
fairly new
new, it
Boulder.
hasn't been in, I think it starts this year.
No, well, they were getting benefits when I was there.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first year they were getting benefits, so that would have been 2018. So prior to that, they didn't get the benefits. And I don't remember if they had to pay full benefits or if they got same as we did, I don't remember that, but.
Or we keep it simple and here's the dollar amount.
So we're getting texts and. Is that something we should all say?
It's not what you call this.
So like, I wonder for that as well, when you're talking about benefits, like, I mean, I'm sure benefits will change as time goes on that the town provides and stuff, so how do we protect for that as, you know, things change? Okay, something to keep in mind then. I think we wanna hear some public comments on that, I believe. Is that
Yeah, that's a
help us?
tough one. It was nice to have access to the rec center.
Yeah.
But none of the other benefits were either used, like by either me or anyone else saying, hey, I attended another meeting at like my $25. Nobody did that.
Yeah.
And I think for staff to have to track the number of meetings that you're attending, and then we were trying to avoid that by putting this
Yeah.
like one
That's why we
static number.
went a little high, is cause we wanted to make it so that you're not having to track meetings attended and all of that.
I mean,
Make it simple for town staff for payment as well.
Yeah.
But like, how many trustees did the medical insurance part? Cause all of them had their own.
We had, in my knowledge, we only had one that opted into that.
In how long? Like since?
I've been here 15 years, well, since it started.
Yeah.
And, cause it didn't, I can't remember what year we started.
Okay.
But-
So it's not something that trustees typically,
I mean, there's not really any benefit except you have access to it. There's no monetary advantage.
Yeah,
that one there
for-
isn't.
Not for the
There isn't.
healthcare.
Yeah. Agreed. Other than it might help the town because there's more people paying into that.
Yeah. But
Right.
really, 9 people isn't that significant for the amount of staff the town employs, right?
okay. I think, yeah, we'll have to come back to that as well, and hopefully we'll get some more ideas as we go through. Anything else for the go backs? Okay, I think then we can move on to our charter review and discussion. So starting, I guess, finishing up the Article 3, because we had worked on all the way up to 309, I believe. So we had to finish out 310 and 311, because I think we were hitting 1030 at that point. So let's see. Did anyone have anything to discuss for 310, the special meetings provisions? I guess the only question I had here is it says it shall be called by the town clerk. So does that mean you call it on your own cognizance?
I
Okay.
notice it. So usually it's, you determined you wanna turn a study session and they determine they wanna turn a study session into a special meeting because they have some business they wanna do. Or they call a special meeting because they need to have something in between meetings. And then it's sort of noticed, but
And
that's
it
sort of me calling it.
Yeah, it typically goes through the town administrator.
Right,
And you have to post the agenda anyway.
And I have to post the agenda,
So,
so
we
it
gotta
kinda
go
is
for-
called by me in the fact that I post it.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So for that one though, like, you're not just calling one out of,
no.
yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
get everyone together and.
I wouldn't wanna do that.
Trying to give everybody extra $25.
She likes to cancel them if she.
So the verbal request of the majority of the council or the mayor alone on 24 hours notice, okay. And then, yeah, the same meeting
Yeah.
notices and
Yeah.
I guess does there need to be any provision stated here that any such special meetings are also subject to the privacy or the open meetings law, or is that assumed just because of the nature?
I think
All
that's-
meetings are.
Yeah.
All meetings are,
meetings,
yeah.
Yeah, all meetings are.
Okay, anyone had anything else for 310? Nope. Okay, perfect. Then 311, the executive sessions. Any council can be recessed into executive session by a form of 2/3.
2/3, that's new, I didn't know that that was
That's how it always
required.
is. That's how it always is. It was even now, it is even now, but
Okay.
usually everybody agrees, so we don't even really count for 2/3,
Yeah.
so.
I think I've only ever heard one person disagree with it anyway, and it wouldn't.
Is that 5 of 7 then?
That is 5 of 7 to call an executive session?
Or 2/3 of the quorum, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think Hillary suggested changing that to council present, just,
Yeah, it's 2/3 of whoever's there.
okay. I think the only suggestion I had was to add like under 311(1)(a), a special, like just a notice to point out that except as we will have laid out in the public land section that we're writing. So like the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, sale of real personal or other property interest except as laid out for public land in section, whatever, the one that we're gonna be writing for public.
Well, yeah, but some of that still has to be done under executive session. Some of that still has to be done.
You still want to be able to have an exec session to talk about
Yeah.
purchasing things, cause you may not want that to become public
Oh, okay.
knowledge.
Right.
Especially during negotiations.
Okay, I see that.
You can't take any action without being in an
Right.
open meeting, but you can talk about
But
it.
if you're meeting with lawyers or,
Well, or real estate professionals who are helping you like see the various components of 4 different pieces of real estate, and then all the 4 of those owners see that you're seeing that, and then they jack the price up, or like they wanna know who. You're trying to avoid competitive strategizing against you.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. Let's see. Anyone have anything else for anything in this section, 311? Hillary had one more note down at the bottom.
Yeah. And in fact, by the way, E sort of covers that, what we were just talking about. The negotiations.
So is that?
Relative to matters that may
Yeah,
seem.
it looks like it's gonna end, but it doesn't, it goes to another page.
So Hillary's note on 3, that's 311(3), says that by requiring an affirmative vote, this formalizes a process for including guests or excluding the town manager or town attorney. As I read that, and I'm still trying to process it, but it looks like it says you have to vote to go into executive session without having the town manager or town attorney present.
No, I'm reading it differently.
That's if you want a
I'm reading
specific,
for anybody who's in the executive session, you have to have a vote for. I know in OSTAT we've never done that, but
You say that you have to do what?
you have to vote to allow somebody else in the executive session, other than those people stated.
so by
So like,
default,
for example, if you wanted the real estate person in the executive session, you have to vote individually on each person, is the way I'm reading it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Right now, certain staff will be allowed to go in to executive session.
yeah,
And I don't think that's not
We
in the
don't
script
vote,
now.
we don't vote each individual person who's not a
No,
trustee
that's-
in or out.
I think that's what this is saying though, if I'm reading it
But
right.
then in the executive session, don't they state who's in that meeting?
Right, correct. For the
So
record,
for the-
once they're in, they
Yeah,
state
once,
it, but
for the
it's
record,
not
they're stated
a
who's in that
requirement.
meeting.
Yeah, we say, yeah, you announce, but you don't vote.
I think that's her point here, is by requiring in quotes, affirmative vote, it formalizes the process for discussing who's there or excluding the town manager or town attorney.
right.
I think she's saying we should strike that, and I tend to agree.
I don't think she's saying.
No, I think she added that,
Oh, she added it?
yeah, the
Oh.
highlighted, she added to formalize that vote process.
Okay, because often when you highlight something that was there, if something was there and you comment on it, it's highlighted.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
she
don't-
didn't add it.
She didn't add it, that was there.
Original Eagle Charter.
She's just calling it out as, it's because it's different than right now, we don't,
Right.
we never went into exec session and voted on who was gonna be there, it was just, but it was announced.
Exactly. And maybe can just change it to announce. But I think that's part of open meetings anyway.
I think you don't announce, it's not announced in public,
Yeah.
in a public meeting,
Right.
who's going into exec session.
Right, no, it's during the executive session, you have a roll call, in essence.
Yeah, so it's not announced even when you say you're going into exec session.
It's during, yes,
Yes,
It's after the-
behind the closed doors, but
it's usually after the second announcement. First you announce you're going to session, then you announce you're in session, then you have a roll call, then at the end of the session, you announce that you're leaving the session. Then after you leave, you announce you've come back from the session. So there's 5 announcements you have to
I
make.
think the question for Hillary is, what does she mean, what does this mean by acquiring the affirmative vote? What process does that put in place that may not exist?
Like what problem is this trying to solve, basically, by having that?
Someone attending the meeting who shouldn't be in the meeting.
Or
No,
us having
I think it's
us-
different. Okay,
the council having a meeting without, and excluding the town manager or town attorney, and if I were a lawyer, if I put my lawyer's hat on, you want that to be stated. Look, they met without the town manager or town attorney, so whatever happened was without any, standard advisors. Maybe that's what she's saying.
Maybe that gets a question
we
mark.
don't do that.
Yeah.
we could ask her what she means. I think it's,
Yeah, I think I'm interpreting her comment as this is not necessary, and it may create conflict. We haven't had that issue, it's the mayor, the notice says specifically what the executive session is generally about, so that provides public notice, and then the mayor, the council convenes in executive session, and I will invite staff who need to be there, the mayor will recognize whoever is in the meeting as part of the record, so that's clear. But it's not formalizing who can and can't attend.
Yeah, so I'm reading it the same way
Yeah.
that you are, that her little note, this highlighted section is formalizing that process, where maybe we don't need to formalize that process.
So would we then wanna make sure that like how executive sessions are called are laid out in ordinance, because the next section, 4, says that this section is meant to supersede state ordinance regarding executive sessions. So if that's stated and we don't talk about how executive sessions are actually called or held, would that create an issue?
I think we're mixing 2 different things. One talks about how executive sessions are formed.
Right.
This is saying you have to have a vote for who's going to be there,
Right.
other than those people, and I think that vote is not necessary based on my experience anyway.
So 1 just says how you would start one and for what purposes.
Right.
2 says that this general subject matter has to be stated for the record. and that no actions and final decisions can be made in executive sessions. And then 3 is for attendance, okay. And then 4 says specifically intended to supersede Colorado state statutes.
But it says, but only in any conflicting provisions of the Colorado state statutes, so maybe there's some that you
Okay.
still.
So how executive sessions right now, how they're held, are laid out in state statutes?
That's how we do
Okay.
it right now.
And looking at the Castle Pines charter there, they've got a very simple statement that just says, executive sessions shall be held in compliance with the Colorado open meetings law as now in effect and as may be amended from time to time, period. That's the only thing they say about executive sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we need any of 3 the more I think about it.
So effectively 311 is one sentence that you just read.
Is there, I
And
guess,
3 doesn't include staff. 3 doesn't mention staff at all here,
Right.
and we do have staff in
So-
executive sessions.
Again,
This would require a formal vote of designating which staff
Right.
members would be able to attend
Right.
an executive session. So you may want that formality, I'm not saying one way or the other, but it would require that kind of formality. and-
Right.
and-
Does that vote happen in the session or before the session?
I think that would be 4.
Probably we would say, I move to go into executive session for the purposes of blah, 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 blah.
and excluding,
And we'll have these people and exclude these people or something like that.
I don't know you need to say that at the beginning though.
I think the way
I
it's
think that's
written, you
what
would
they're-
have to.
They're
I
saying,
think that's what this is saying.
That's what's-
Saying
that's-
If we follow this,
Right.
my suggestion would be, put a period after to attend an executive session and just leave the rest out.
or the Castle Pines route,
I like that one.
Well, that takes care of all of 3, didn't it?
yeah,
And that takes
Yeah.
care of all of
311.
311.
Or 311 rather,
Yeah,
yes,
the
sorry.
entire 311 section.
That's what I meant to say.
So as currently written in state statutes, like the only other change she had suggested here was that 2/3 of the council present. Is that still how it's written in the state statute? It requires
I think
2/3
so.
vote?
One advantage of having some of what's in 311 is you don't have to refer back to the state statutes to see, okay, how do we
What
do
can
this?
we do? Yeah,
Candidly, I would just change,
just strike
3.
3/3.
I was gonna say, can we get rid of 311(3)?
Well, okay,
either
so,
get rid of it or just stop after, cause the point about staff being invited, it's probably worth saying people can be invited.
Or,
Yeah, if you said the mayor, council members, and town manager and town attorney may attend, and other invited guests may attend the executive session.
And I would just
there's
stop
no
it at
formal
that.
process.
I mean,
So
we
one
could
person
put-
can invite.
We could put something in where it says like the guest must be relevant to the meeting,
So saying
so
these-
you don't have like brother-in-laws joining, whatever.
well, it has to be approved by 2/3 of the council present, so you've
If
got,
you put the vote in, right?
No, because
No,
I
the
think
whole
the
meeting.
beginning part of
No,
it
but-
says that you have to have a
I understand.
2/3 vote to go into executive session.
Right.
And so if you're inviting specific people, you'd have to do it at that point too. I guess that's not formalized.
Because you announce that you're going to executive session right before you go into it, so the people are there. So I'm wondering if we're overanalyzing this.
So I'll just add that we don't often like have random, I mean, the town manager really decides like, oh, this is a matter of like parks, and so the director of parks, it's not like a lot of people, it's, I usually attend as the deputy to the town administrator, but it's pretty formal. And it's really but the decision of like the mayor and the town administrator, but it's based on the topic at hand, yeah.
I think,
Only the people that need to attend.
Yeah, only,
Right.
yeah.
That are
State that
relevant, yeah.
formally, but that's
Yeah.
practice.
And so what we could say is other relevant persons may be invited, would that?
Yeah, I think that would cover it, right?
Yeah.
so yeah, Hillary did say something in the first note on 311. The last sentence says, the idea is to preserve the open meetings laws that exist now in case statutory changes happen later to narrow it or limit it. If we put it in here like it is here and don't just defer to state statutes, then you've got at least some static stuff you can
Right.
rely
Well,
on.
that's what 4 does, doesn't it?
3 or 4.
And 4 supersedes.
Only if you keep this all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we went
yes.
Castle Pines route, the state could change how executive sessions work.
Right.
The town of Erie would have no say until they amend the charter.
So,
So I think it is worth keeping it.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
I don't know
worth
if we
keeping
wanna-
some elements of it, but then I think from like what I'm hearing from town staff is that subsection 3, it would change how things are done now, right? Right now, the process is more informal. There hasn't really been any conflict about like one member of the board trying to invite someone who's not relevant or anything like that.
So again, the recommendation that I've heard is in 3, where just make it other relevant persons may be invited to attend an executive session, period, and strike the rest.
Yeah, so
I would
there's no,
agree.
so there's no formal vote
Right.
for it.
I would keep it in there for the reason, for exactly that, if they change the statutes.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, I think we get rid of the vote, but put in there that
The
the people have to
relevance.
be relevant
Yep.
to the discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, so then we're gonna just strike the highlighted portion and just add that
Well-
other relevant.
Strike from upon to present, strike that, and put the word relevant between other and persons.
Okay.
I'll have to ask.
Or the relevant
Who's gonna be the
persons.
judge of?
You're right.
I'm gonna just ask it.
The person who calls the executive
Yeah, some council member might think that their brother-in-law really is relevant.
well,
I think trying to get in front of every one of those situations would be really hard. There's gotta be some discretion left up to the mayor and the town manager.
and something for looking ahead a little bit is whether we wanna refer to this section in the boards and commissions to make sure they follow the same rules as the council for executive sessions. I think we should.
I think, yeah, I can't remember how it's written.
I think it's silent.
Okay, so,
Just one more suggestion, to make it active voice, could I suggest that it be the council may invite other relevant persons to attend the executive session?
Oh, that makes sense, that's,
Prevent like the town manager from inviting people without the council
approval.
sort of thing.
Does that limit if you inviting
If you
staff?
decide,
I would invite somebody in, and if the council doesn't want them in, they could say, sorry, you're not,
Okay.
we don't want you.
Okay.
And I think it can be handled that way.
So then
The
I
council
like,
or
yeah.
town manager, that would-
Oh, I like that, I like that, sorry, I don't get to have a voice, never mind, sorry, my bad.
So what do we think about how that's phrased then, for Malcolm's suggestion? Do we want the council may invite other people to attend executive sessions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're elected and they're the one choosing
Yeah.
to do this session, they should
Yeah.
pick who's there.
Do we wanna include the town manager as also someone who can invite, or just leave it up to council?
I think, well,
No, I think
And
it's
then-
council.
It's council.
That's fine.
well, has the town attorney ever invited somebody?
Not without clearing it with the mayor.
Okay, well then I'm wondering, because the reason I'm asking, it explicitly says mayor separate from council members. So we're gonna say the mayor, council, I'm not.
Well, the mayor is part of the council, so they can be written, I think only when the mayor is,
Well, then should we take mayor out of 3?
Yeah,
Well, the first sentence says they each individually may attend them. And then that second one we're working on right now is now who gets to invite other people.
Right.
And I think you get a superset of everybody if you say the town council can invite instead of trying to separate mayor, council members, or town manager.
I'm not sure I agree, but that's okay.
does this mean, so if we had a definition of council includes all councilors and mayor,
Right,
then that would be okay, but we
And
don't
it-
currently have that definition.
and I had a question when we get down later, and I think I sent out is whether we want a definition section, I think we probably do. But are we saying Malcolm can't explicitly invite people, he's gotta ask the council to invite them?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you do that today? I don't think so.
I mean, I would certainly defer to the council.
Yeah,
It's,
I know.
in practice, it happens very informally.
I know. That's what I would expect.
Hasn't ever been a problem. But if I did invite somebody and the council didn't want them, I wouldn't object.
Right, I hear you, but
So yeah, I think
I'm just wondering the wording.
And also to your point, the first section, the council shall include a mayor and 6 members.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it
That's
is already defined that the council is everyone, so.
So I think 3 can
No, we don't
remove
have somebody
that.
mayor.
I think the mayor can be removed from
I
3.
just want to be consistent.
Yeah,
For consistencies, yeah, we can remove mayor from
Yeah.
3.
That's
So the
fine.
council, town manager, town attorney may attend executive sessions, and the council may invite others to attend
That sounds fine.
as desired. Or
If Malcolm's happy with that, I am.
we'll leave that open, so we're just gonna. Okay. That's one change then. Anyone else have anything else for number 3? Or section 3, 10 and 11?
No, but while you're taking notes for forward things,
Huh?
while you're taking notes for forward things, just a note that we want to include something similar in Article 5 for boards and commissions.
Okay,
So we don't lose it.
remind us when we get there.
I expect that number.
Right, so if we're done with our section 3, we can, sorry, go ahead.
Just on the boards and commissions note, I just wanna say that boards and commissions don't typically have executive sessions. Boards and commissions usually just have meetings. There are some, OSTAB is one,
Okay,
that does have executive sessions, and at this point, they have to be approved by the town attorney before you
Okay.
have them. So that's how they run right now.
right.
And
So
they
we
are,
want to make sure we
they
have
are
that.
only when it is dealing with purchase of property.
Right.
Right.
And that's, so.
Right, so it's not like
And so-
they can call an executive session,
They can't.
they don't typically,
Right.
we don't typically allow boards and commissions right
Okay,
now to do
so-
that.
So why don't, instead of putting in section 5, I'll put it in the open space section.
That executive
makes it
session.
more specific.
Yeah,
I'll make a note to myself to do that.
okay. Let's see. Alright, so I think that completes section 3.
are
With
we
lots
putting
of-
an ethics thing in Article 3?
Huh?
We're putting an ethics clause in Article 3, or is it?
I think that was one of our
I thought we
go
had some.
backs.
Yeah, that's one of
Or
our.
it to be its own section, I
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
We're gonna have like an ethics that'll apply to all council and boards and everything. Like a dedicated ethics and transparency section.
Does that mean you got rid of 306?
It may,
Okay.
yeah, we've kind of deferred that, it may strike that
Okay.
section and just there'll be an overarching.
This is our last meeting, forgot it.
Yeah,
What
you're not
about-
alone.
What about vacancies?
we were gonna write another vacancy section that would apply, like, that would define what is a vacancy, how many missed meetings, and how we'd fill vacancies.
Why not keep that in town council since it pretty much pertains to town council?
Cause it would also pertain to, I think, boards and commissions, cause
It
we
could, yeah.
Yeah, we could,
We could do it. I
and
mean,
that's, I think that was,
well,
I
unless boards and commissions is covered by ordinance, an
Right.
ordinance, then it wouldn't be covered in the charter.
so we can say, we can lay it out like that, it would, like, vacancies may be governed, you know, this is how vacancies are governed unless otherwise laid out by ordinance that establishes a specific commission or board.
So just a thought, your council is elected, boards and commissions are appointed by the council.
Okay,
So they're two totally different sort of entities. So right now, what we do, if we have a vacancy on council, we either, depending on what they decide to do, we do a couple of different things. We either open an election for that, or whatever we did this last time. I don't know how that all worked out, where.
Pick the next person.
We appointed the next one.
It was so close within that
Yes.
last election,
Right,
they just.
it was, yeah, but I mean, when Mayor Brooks took
Trustee
That was an
Gibbs.
appointment.
Trustee
That
Gibbs'
was-
place.
That was an appointment.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
appointed.
Both of those
They
are appointments.
appointed him.
Yeah.
But I think that,
Boards and commissions are, typically what we do is, like, we've had some resignations this year, so, and we had appointments this year as well. So what we did is we took the applications that were left over after those appointments, sent those to the board, and the board picked from that and recommended that to the board or commission, and then recommended that to the board itself.
So if we put a special election to fill a vacancy for the council, it wouldn't be relevant for a board.
The board or commission.
Yes.
Because the board of trustees currently decides how to fill
Yeah.
the advisory boards.
Okay.
And the advisory boards are set by ordinance, and this doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, this supersedes ordinances,
Yes.
so.
And the only board or commission that currently that the board of trustees selects the appointees is planning commission. The rest are selected by the board or commission itself, and then they recommend that to the board of trustees who approve it by resolution.
But they don't have to.
They don't have to.
They always have.
They always have, but that's typically how it runs, so.
Could shoot it down.
So
Why don't we defer-
the BOT right now currently interviews planning commission
Great.
applicants, and then they select from those.
Should we defer the vacancy discussion of boards and commissions till we get to Article 5?
We can do that for board,
But-
but I think this vacancy probably needs to be in Article 3.
So it sounds like that's the, yeah. it sounds
Vacancy
like that's
of
where
the
we're going.
council.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so do we wanna address that and add a 312?
Yes,
Is it not, was it not preloaded anywhere in here?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, there was nothing that defined an actual vacancy.
What about other areas of the Eagle charter that we've been using? Is there something we could grab to?
Let's see, 302 subsection 4 has in case of vacancy. But it's,
Spreadsheet.
yeah,
Yeah, it does not
It's
talk
set
about
forth by
vacancies.
ordinance.
yeah, so it's referring back to Colorado revised statutes. And then ordinance will define how vacancies will be filled. But it still doesn't define what, like, how a position can be defined as vacant.
Yeah, a lot of people do put it in section, the election section, which is our section 3.
So authority, yeah, so if we want to, we can cut out 4 or 302 subsection 4 and then move it into 312. And that'll be like, that'll define what is like attendance requirements and things like that. And if they break them, those,
That is what we discussed last time,
Yeah,
was making
just
that
breaking it
312.
okay. Alright, so if we wanna set up what we would define as our vacancy, let's do that now.
Do we want to copy from, a lot of them have it. Rachel Louisville, Castle Pines, Steamboat, Mars.
Yeah, I can't remember which ones I came across, but there were some that said like 3 consecutive missed meetings would, mean that position is now vacant. And there were, let's see. I mean, some of them had provisions for the council itself removing members, which I didn't like, so I wanted, the council shouldn't be able to remove their
I
own
agree.
members because they're elected.
There's recall in Lafayette's that steers in the wrong direction, but that's also another section.
Recalls.
Right, yeah, so recalls, I think, recalls is fine for removing members,
Yeah,
the
right.
council, I was just saying they shouldn't be able to remove their own members.
Right, I'd agree, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, after the
Yeah.
vacancy section, we could add more.
Oh man, yeah, we'll have more.
Well, there's a recall section in Article 2,
Oh, okay.
cause
Oh,
that's
the elections.
elections area.
Yeah, and I think we were gonna say we were gonna do our own dedicated recalls and referendum section that would cover recalling elected officials.
So there's,
What was sent out to us on December 27th. It gives a lot of examples for grounds for removal.
but let's worry about vacancies rather than recall at this point.
It's a
Yeah,
recall.
removing the person is separate from
Oh.
filling the vacancy, correct? Like we're addressing
Oh.
those things separately?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No removal, but okay,
So, recall is
my
different
comment
than
I think still
a
stands,
vacancy.
we're jumping around.
right.
And so
Okay.
maybe we should stick with vacancies and then we can go to removal
Sorry about that.
or recall.
That's alright. So
there's
is that also in the same section, like the elective offices for the
Yeah, I
removal?
think I was jumping ahead or.
Hold on, let me see if I can, well,
Recall by the voters?
Yeah, recall and referendum are for
By
voters,
voters.
but I think there's like, I
There's
know,
grounds for removal based on attendance and.
That's a vacancy.
Well,
That's what they were.
but so are we dealing with vacancy going forward? There's a vacancy, no matter how it happened, but there's a vacancy moving forward and we gotta deal with that.
Right.
And then we have to deal with the things that
Would be
Cause
the-
vacancy.
Create
the-
that vacancy.
create that vacancy, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I think 303 defines some things that can create the vacancy,
Okay,
right?
but again, I'm just worried with children.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we just stay on
Except-
vacancies, on how to fill them,
Yeah,
and then we can worry about the cause?
yeah, let's do that, cause 312 we wanna do filling, like, I guess,
So Louisville has a pretty clear section on vacancies. So a vacancy shall exist if during a term of office, the mayor or council member, and then it lists dies, judicially declared incompetent, resigns, is recalled without election of successor, no longer meets one or more qualifications specified for the general thing, et cetera. Anyway, there's a few different things here. Oh, has more than 6 absences from regular council meetings during any
That's
vote.
what
Right, but these are still
causes it.
causes, we're
Those are
talking
the
No,
about.
but this is, I
It's
understand, I'm just
defining
reading
the
what they
200
have.
The 200.
There they, yeah, so
Yeah.
we may not want that there,
Okay,
to do,
yeah, I think we don't, I think we
Yes.
want, yeah, we want the before and the
Right.
after.
I agree.
so maybe 312 will be what creates a
Cause it.
vacancy, and
Exactly.
313 is
Except that
what-
one thing.
how to fill it.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So everything except that 6th point. So do you want me to email this to you,
Okay,
or?
Sure.
what's wrong with, or could we live with, 302 subsection 4 in how to fill a vacancy? Hillary made a few comments on it, talking about what Colorado revised statutes apply and what that means.
So the
That's basically keeping
statutes,
it what it is now.
they can be
right?
appointed, and if, or they can call a special election.
Right, so this one, it kind of leaves it up to the council.
Unless 60 days go by and they don't do anything, and then
Right.
it triggers a special election.
Right.
I think we should have something more specific.
I do too, I think
'Cause I
I've
think-
witnessed a number of times when
Yeah.
It's all
and
in the
it's-
air, it feels super unfair, this side, that side, like, I think we should just have it.
Cause I've seen it defined in some places where it's like, if the vacancy occurs within 90 days of an election, then the next highest vote receiver is appointed. And then if it's beyond that, then we do another special election, within 60 days or something like
What
that.
Louisville says is a vacancy occurs, and mayor or council member, the city council, could be town council, by a majority vote of remaining members shall appoint a person who meets the qualifications until the next regular election or statewide general election occurs, if that's in the interim.
That's kind of what's
I'm just
happening
saying-
now, and
Yeah,
I
that's
don't,
what's
it's
happening
just
now.
every time, it's not.
I mean, and half
I
the
don't
time
think
it's
it
like,
fairly
do we
plays
even, do we even fill it, cause we're almost to the end of the term, like, there's so much.
But there were several others that had things.
I mean, there's ones that if it's within 180 days, it remains vacant, and then you get to the November election and elect a new person.
Right, so it,
Town staff thoughts?
I
So,
like the provisions in the Castle Pines one.
Castle Pines, okay.
Within 90 days of vacancy of the office of the mayor or council member, the city council shall fill the vacancy by appointment or by calling a special election to fill the vacancy. If the vacancy is filled by appointment, the person appointed to fill the vacancy shall hold the office until the next regular city election. If the vacancy is filled by special election, the person elected to fill the vacancy shall hold the office until the expiration of the full remaining term of office that was vacated.
That's all I was
what we're
gonna
doing
point
right now.
out.
That is what we're doing
And I don't
now.
like it.
I don't have faith in the process.
I don't either.
Just, I've seen it happen.
I like the idea of appointing somebody that was like the next highest getting votes. I think this is really important that we put this back into the residents' hands and we let them have a say in who their council members are. So,
What if, for example, there's only one person running
Well, and that's
or
the
if there's
thing, we
three
have to
people running
talk,
for
we
three
have to talk
seats.
about if we've got,
So you can't
if we've
force,
got
I guess,
wards or
Yeah, we can-
divisions or whatever we call them, then that could be, I mean, that's a very real possibility.
Or I could see doing what you're suggesting, Candace, if within a certain period of time, like within 3 months or something.
But if not, if it's not within that period of time, then it should
Yeah.
trigger a special election, I think.
how difficult are special elections?
Difficult.
Yeah, I think
And
you said.
Expensive,
And then,
yeah.
yeah, still.
I would add a fair amount of council people, board people do resign. This is a fairly frequent occurrence for us as of recently. So this could be something that happens more often than you think, that people actually resign from these.
few years.
The last few years, we've had that happen, yeah, so just think like, at any time, someone could resign, so it could be multiple special, it's just worth thinking about.
Yeah, it happened every year.
Or if it happened like every 3 months, it
No,
would
but
be
what-
like, then you'd have to do
But we're
a,
paying them so much money to stay.
But what I just read talked about the next election, either the next municipal election or the next state election. So we're talking within
yeah,
12 months, on average it would be within 6 months.
maximum, yeah, it would be a maximum within 12 months, right? Cause
If they're
Well-
appointed, they stay until the next election, the next municipal election, whether that be, we move to November, so it would be that next November election. If they are elected, they fill out the remainder of the term of the person who resigned.
Right.
So if that person still had 3 years, they get 3 years, but if you appoint them, they only get till the
Until-
next
Less
election.
than a year.
I think
And I-
appointment is the way to go.
yeah, cause I think then it would be that the people would get to vote sooner for who they want to represent them, without having to go through a special
Okay.
election.
But to Malcolm's point, I think you mentioned it, that the Castle Pines one allows either,
Well, it says, yeah, it
by
allows,
appointment or by calling for a special election.
it allows the council to decide which to do,
Mhm.
which is I think what we don't want to
Yeah,
allow.
That makes sense. So I think we're almost back to Louisville, but.
Within 90 days of a vacancy, so you could just change it to within 90 days of a vacancy. The office of the mayor or council member shall fill the vacancy, and we can just end it there by saying by appointment.
Yeah.
Just end it right there.
But if they're,
That's the same thing that they've been doing.
And like, yeah, their
Time and time
appointment
again.
process
And the
is
appointment process is it's flawed, it's.
Yeah, no, but
Absolutely,
again,
it's not defined, so they get
It's
to
not
choose.
defined. Yeah, that's
what
true.
Louisville says is that they will appoint somebody up until the next election.
Right, but that's still potentially a year of someone that wasn't elected. I think that's the argument, is someone could be on the council that wasn't elected for a year
Yeah,
and with an ill-defined selection process.
So, Brian, are you saying that the appointment is the problem or the process of going through the appointment is the problem?
The
Like,
process of going through the appointment is the problem.
okay, it's not special election versus appointment that you're arguing, it's the way that appointment
The way that
happens.
appointments happen.
I think if we define the appointment process, either using the next highest vote getter, or we'd have to come up with an alternative if there was only one candidate, and then we just leave that until the next regular election, because there is an election every year, right? And so then it could be filled by an actual appointment at the next regular election.
There's an election every year? There's a November
there's
election.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
November
Yeah.
election.
so we would go on the next
And we
November
can,
election.
and it's a lot
It
cheaper.
may not be, we may not have anything municipal on that.
Right,
Correct.
the only question municipally may be are to fill our vacancy, right? And it's a lot cheaper to do it that way, even if it's not a municipal election, right?
And I hate to bring up a previous point, but we still have to decide whether our elections are going to be even year or odd year.
It doesn't matter, because for this point, there will always be an election every year for something
Yeah.
in the
We
state,
can join
and we'll join in.
we can join
Yeah.
those. So my thought so the way I'm sort of reading what Malcolm, or understanding what Malcolm read was that if it happens within a certain amount of days, a resignation happens within a certain amount of days of the election, it goes to the next highest, is that what that said? That was something else, somebody else read to me.
Someone else read that.
Somebody else.
Okay, so it will go to the next highest vote getter, and then if it's not that, if it's after that point, then it goes to a special election. So you'd
Right.
still get the choice of the voters, because you would get the next highest vote getter, And then if not, you would go to an election.
And Ben, to your point, that would limit, it would be less than a year. Depending, it'll be your minus that
Yeah.
amount.
But I think
You
we
could,
don't wanna go to a special election.
you could
Right.
go with 180-day cutoff. If it's
Right,
before 180 days, it goes to the
Next vote
highest
getter.
vote getter. After 180 days, it remains vacant until the next election.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. Now, what if the next highest vote getter just doesn't wanna be a part of it anymore?
then it goes
I
to the
think,
next one.
yeah, I think it'll
We're
just,
soon
Absolutely
we're
right,
gonna
yeah.
soon hit the point
I
where.
mean, that really, that
Well,
can totally
But
happen.
that
Totally.
actually, no, it's a very good point, because if we do have districts, then
Right.
there's a very good possibility that we'll have 2 candidates per district each time, so it would inevitably fall to the next person. So maybe is it something that we wanna do, go back to at large, I don't know.
Or we say that the next person who gets more than a certain percentage of the votes. If someone gets 2 votes, they shouldn't be in line, I don't think, just because they ran.
No, but Candace makes a good point. What, I mean, you could fall to appointing that vacancy to at large, even though it could be a district seat.
Yes.
But then you got someone from another neighborhood.
I still, my point still stands though.
I
If someone
found,
voted at large, ran at large,
Uh-huh.
and got 1% of the votes, should they be eligible to be appointed?
They ran, they
ran,
qualified,
yeah.
it's much.
I don't-
it doesn't, yeah,
That's not the voter's choice though.
I think
it was more voters' choice.
Lisa has,
No,
Lisa
no,
has
no,
something,
it
you
was
guys,
the candidate's
can we
choice.
just, let's listen to what Lisa
Lisa,
has to
what's
say.
okay, I found this website, it's CIRSA.org.
Seriously.
And it says, first, state law provides that a vacancy in the town board may be filled either by appointment or by election, we know that. However, this option only lasts for 60 days. If the town board does not fill the vacancy by appointment or order an election within 60 days, then the board is required to order an election to fill the vacancy.
That's state statute.
But that's,
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
state statute,
but
so.
that again causes us to pay for a special election.
Well, and it puts us
And
right
it
back
goes
in the
back to
exact
where we were
position that we're
before.
in, that's what they're doing right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, I feel like it would have to be an at-large.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, but again, if someone, just because they ran,
I mean,
I think it's,
They got the signatures.
in order to
They
run,
qualified.
there were some qualifications.
25 signatures.
Yeah.
but that's not the voter's choice. I mean, we're trying to say we want someone who's the voter's
But
choice.
the council appointing somebody is certainly not the voter's choice.
No, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I'm just saying,
Qualified
I think if someone gets less than X percent of the vote, it should be treated as if they didn't run.
Then you would have to move into
Oh.
a special election, you would have
At
to.
least 12
Or
consecutive
you
months
appoint.
prior to the day of the election.
But we're back.
That's
I know,
not
I
the
know.
voter's choice though.
But
The
neither is
appointment
somebody getting 3 votes. The people's choice.
I don't know, I mean, they got 3 votes, so it's like 3
It's
people's
their own
choice
and their
at least.
mother. I mean, come
We're just
on.
gonna put in there
That
eeny,
brother-in-law coming back.
meeny,
Yes.
meeny, miny, mo. That's what we're gonna put in there, eeny, meeny, miny,
Or
mo,
Draw
remains
names on
vacant.
that.
right?
It
Or it
could-
remains
They
vacant.
can
just
draw
remains
straws.
vacant.
Remains vacant.
And then, but there is something that, once there's 3 vacancies, that automatically triggers a special election.
The other concern is if it remains vacant, what do you do for tiebreakers?
I was just gonna say.
If we
I was
can-
thinking about that, and this idea, I may not like this idea.
I already know I'm not.
You could give the mayor an additional vote.
No.
What if the mayor's?
I'm just,
Or you could take away that vote.
No, if something, the way it works when there was ties is it just doesn't pass. And so if you want something to pass, you gotta
It
get,
needs a majority
You gotta
of
get
the vote.
votes.
yeah,
I think that's
that's,
fair.
because that's the way we have it written, is and if 2 pass, it has to have a majority.
Right.
And so if there is a tie, that's not a majority, it doesn't pass.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So back to the problem.
It is
Yeah.
prudent to implement a formal process with sufficient advertisement of the vacancy to provide transparency and ample opportunity for participation.
Which is what we did
Yeah.
when we appointed the last time
But I
before
mean,
the election.
Your
Was it-
biggest
there was
problem
a-
is you
there
don't
was
want
a-
any appointments.
They filled out applications.
We had to do applications and they
But
were
that's-
entered.
Yes, that's correct.
No appointment should happen. It should be vacant or it should be voted.
That's how I feel.
so back that up to Justin's appointment. How much time, it was less than 180 days between trustee Gipp leaving
He resigned in October.
yeah, so would we have left it vacant then under these?
If there was another election in
Or we s-
November,
We say 6 months, we can say 180 days.
I mean, at that time there wasn't.
Well, it was
like
April,
April's
but it's less than 180 days.
So then he would be appointed, on what I
No,
understand
he
what you're
would,
saying.
no, it would be left
No,
vacant.
because
No, because I thought we said if it's less than 180 days,
until
the
the
next
next,
person.
until the next election.
Until the next election.
Yeah, you're talking about after the election, within 180 days, it goes to the next person?
Yes.
This was after that 180 days, but 180 days, less than 180 days before the next election.
Oh, okay, well, that
So
would
then
be
it would have
vacant
remained
for the 6
vacant.
months.
So then we have a council of 6 and you
For-
have things that are end up in a tie, more likely,
For
but
about
that's just
6
the way it
months.
goes.
So I can just offer this, when I was in Boulder, we did have, there were 9 council members. So we did have 8 at one point. Her seat was left vacant until the next election. I don't think we ever had a tie vote.
Yeah, I don't think it would
I
have
don't,
happened.
I think it very rarely happens that you get a tie vote.
It depends on the topic, but yeah.
Yeah.
But again, we're saying a tie vote means it's not a majority, so it fails.
A tie is a nay vote,
Yes,
so.
so
What's issues, who has a issue with that idea of if it's within 180, we put the next person, you do, I know that.
no, I don't. No, if it's within 180 days, there's, well,
Well, but if they get 3 votes.
If they get 3 votes, yes.
You're feeling like they have to
I
have a
would say
certain
180
percentage.
days and they get at least 10% of the vote or something. You should set something, I think, but I can also be overruled, and that's fine. That's why we have a lot of people in this group.
I think that you do have a complication of appointing someone who decided they're not interested anymore, like the next highest vote getter could be sour, or anything could happen, they're gonna move.
Or not accept the nomination.
Yeah. So eventually you're gonna run out of those people.
Yeah.
And you have to get someone in. Let's just say you've exhausted all the previous candidates from the previous election.
Then I think you trigger a special election in that
For one
instance.
seat.
For in that instance, yeah, that's gonna be so rare, I think.
I don't think it's gonna be rare. Because I think,
You're gonna exhaust all of your options,
how many,
all of your candidates.
I'm trying to remember how many candidates we had for the last,
There were 6
Usually
candidates
6
for 3
trustees.
seats.
And 2,
Last time, the time before there were 8 and then there were like 8
okay,
the time
so if you
before
think
that.
we're gonna have enough.
Except where things are complicated with districts.
Well, districts will
Right.
say it goes to.
but if it goes to at-large for that,
at-large seat.
just that seat,
For that, for the
vacancy
remainder of.
until the next election,
Yes, that's not that long a time.
then I don't think it's a huge issue.
So like, I guess even if it goes to the next highest vote getter, we'll still have an election at the coming November
Yes,
to replace them, right?
That's taking the place of appointing, not,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can run, certainly.
But can they? Because what if the seat that's been vacated is a district seat? And then the next
Then they may not be able to run.
they don't wanna run for that, they can't run for
They
that
can't
one
run for that,
district,
right.
even though they did want a seat, and so they sat for 6 months or something, and then they can attempt to run in their own district or at large.
exactly.
Well, and with the wards, is there any guaranteed representation of that same district, so the
Not
person
for
who-
the remainder that,
so that
not
district may
for those
lose
6
their
months,
representation, essentially.
for up to a year, actually.
Well, yeah, but I think that can be leveled up to the entire town of Erie is not well represented. Whether, if everyone was at large or not, we would not have full representation in this situation.
And I think like if people are running for a specific seat, then they would have to, like the next highest vote getter for that seat. Like you wouldn't
Yeah, that's what I
replace,
was,
No,
that was what I
no.
was intending to say,
For-
yeah, so how would you determine
There's
that?
a
'Cause
concern,
Rather be talking.
The votes are
What they
bucketed,
said
right,
was-
by
Yeah.
Their
district,
suggestion
so,
was,
they're by position.
right,
no, but your suggestion was, I thought, that if there's no one there, then it would go to become the next at-large candidate.
I think, I mean, I almost feel like it should be at large anyway.
Do
Whether
you
there's
mean like
somebody
the
there
new
or not.
position would be an at-large position?
The new position would be whoever well, I guess that wouldn't be fair either though, because your districts are gonna be different sizes. So
No,
you're,
there'll be real
by a
fun,
little
say.
bit, we don't want
It's
too
a very
much,
small
but
difference. You would know.
then that would work.
So you'd go down the list first of all for the district itself, like the people who ran for that district seat. If you run out of people who ran for that district seat, you'd go to the at-large positions. And then if one of those was appointed, that position would be an at-large position until the next election.
Yes.
Oh, I almost feel like you should just go directly to at-large and
Well,
not that district.
I don't
Or
think
you
you should break out of the
combine, you
district.
combine them into a single pool.
Theoretically, you would have
Well, no, you couldn't do that.
2 people per district running. right, in theory. So if that person leaves, then that person would automatically get it. So that person may have only gotten 2 votes.
Yeah, I would think the
Whereas
same thing.
people in another district may have gotten a lot more votes, 40% of the votes for their district. So that person would maybe be a better option.
But they weren't
Then the person
running
who got
against
3.
the other person.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cause I mean, then, yeah, I think like if you're running for a position, you
Or
go
do
down
we
the
just
list of the
forget
people.
districts altogether? Keep it at large.
We may, that's still up for debate, right? Cause we haven't discussed all of the districting and at-large positions yet, so. But I guess the process then, regardless, the process for filling a vacancy would stand however we have it. So your suggestion is, once there's a vacancy, you pool all the people who ran for any position. And, well,
It would have
people the people who are at large would have an unfair advantage, cause everyone in the town is running.
No,
for
it's
vote.
not number of votes, it's percentage. It's percentage of eligible voters who voted for them.
Hmm.
It would have to be, otherwise, what you're saying is
Otherwise,
true.
yeah, the at large would have.
Well, but if you're filling the seat for the district, you should.
You should have,
You should give a bias to that district.
Okay, and am I the only one who thinks if someone gets 3 votes, they shouldn't count?
I think
If
so.
I am, then I'll stop.
I think it's a valid point.
I think it's a valid point too, I just.
maybe people who have gotten at least as many votes as
Yeah.
petitions required to be on
At
the
least
ballot.
10%. I would say maybe 10 or 15%. Set some reasonably, it's relatively low
Yeah,
bar, but it is a bar.
okay.
So, do we have any charters that we've seen that do anything like what we're discussing?
I've not.
Because I've been reading every one that I can.
It's on the tail end where if it's 180 days,
For which charter?
let's see, hold on. If less than 180 days remain in an unexpired term, position remains vacant until next regular municipal election. Then it goes back to if more than 180 days remain in unexpired term, council may select person from ward if vacated seat to be filled, to fill position for remainder of unexpired term.
That you don't like.
Yeah, like a charter that defines how the council appoints or selects that person. Like I've not seen.
No,
Most
it's all done by
everyone says
ordinance and it's
appoint.
all-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So it's pretty much how we do it, which
Well, that's the way we did it, it was completely up to the board. The board could have just sat down among themselves and be like, let's pick that person, and it would be it. Whereas where we did it with applications and interviews and all of that, that was overkill, right? That was like above and beyond, it's not set by any statute or anything like that, right?
It was an attempt to be as open and transparent as possible because of previous
Yeah.
issues with it, but it's not, but what that does is it's a different process than was done before, so there's no precedent that is followed.
Right.
so if we defined an appointment process, would that make you feel better? Or no appointments?
Well, I could be overruled, I'm just one
I'm just-
person.
well-
I'm just bringing up something that's I have observed in my time
Yeah.
in Erie.
I understand, but would that make you feel better? If we defined an appointment process or just no appointments?
I'm open to that.
I do think it's important that whoever is appointed is, if we're doing the districts or wards, whoever is appointed is a person, is a representative of that district or ward, like that actual seat is equally filled by somebody.
That makes sense.
I feel like that is important if we're going that route.
I'd leave the tail end of the 180, if there's less than 180 days, let it go to the election.
Well, see, the one
Yes.
you
I would
wrote
agree.
said though, it's for the next
It's a
election
municipal,
for, if there's 180 days left of unexpired term, which is different. Because that means if
Oh,
a
yeah, I see
person,
your point.
that means they've
Okay,
served
well,
3.5 years already.
So 180 days until the next November election.
which is sort of what Louisville says.
Yeah, so it's like if it's in the first 6 months, what happens then?
Combination.
The first 6 months of that person's term,
No, since the election, so the first, if there's an,
First 6 months, go down to the highest vote getter.
I guess, yeah, if it's 6 months since an election. If it's less than 6 months since an election, what happens? If it's
Right.
6 months until the next election, we leave it open, right?
Alright, so here's a compromise. Within the first 180 days, it goes to the highest vote getter. If it's turned down, let council appoint.
But that is different what Chelsea was suggesting, because that way it's not going to necessarily be somebody from the district, if it's a district
I
slot.
think that is
It
what
can
she
be
said.
both, yeah, it can be both, it can be like what he says, and then there can also be like,
Cause the snippet that Brian read, it was that it would be appointed from the ward,
Oh,
the
okay.
district
It
of
must,
the,
it has to be appointed from the
Yes.
board.
From the ward.
Okay,
Or districts.
But we
Yeah.
decided to call it
Districts,
districts, right,
districts.
yeah, not prisons.
We decided that.
It might be.
so yeah, I guess
But I do think we need that safety net of, okay, we can't find anybody in
Yeah.
in that district. Or we ran out of candidates in that district to just go to the next one, then what, appoint? And just let the council figure
Let
out
the
how to
council
appoint.
appoint unless it is with less than 180 days from the next.
Obviously, yeah, so the first decider is
180 days.
180 days.
Yeah.
And then once we're inside that first 180 days, then we need to decide how to do that. So I think that's fair. It's either the district and the candidates that ran for that district that lost, or the at-large and the candidates that ran for at-large and lost. Cause then you, or do you wanna filter that into the districts too? The at-large position gets vacated.
I
Do we
think
have
that
any
needs to
at-large
be, because
positions?
one of the go backs I didn't mention is going back to districts, but we should leave that now. Because we may not have at large.
Right, unless it's a mayor.
Unless it's.
Right.
And then it's only mayor candidates, cause then you've got mayor candidates versus council candidates, and those are different too, cause you might have a mayor candidate who got way more votes than any other council candidate, but we're seating a council.
Right,
yeah, I think they're separate.
so they have to, yeah, if they're gonna be separate seats for the districts, then they have to be separate seats for the mayor, I would think.
Yeah.
So you would just go to the next person who got the
I
next
think,
most
yeah,
votes
for
that's
that
lost.
position.
For that position. And then if that person refuses and you go, there's no other people, then you can go to an appointment, which we would probably need to put some sort of process in place of what that would look like.
An application
But if
process.
it's within, what if you're right on that cusp of the 180 days?
Well,
We know
defined
it's
by
either-
180 days.
it either is or isn't.
Yeah.
It's
Yes or
either,
no?
it's either filled.
But
or
if
it's
they,
not
let's
filled.
say they resign on,
Day 179.
yes.
And the next meeting is day 181. That they're not gonna be
Then it
there.
remains vacant.
Yeah, I guess let's define vacant. Is it vacant on the day that they announce the resignation, or is it is it vacant on the first meeting that they're not gonna attend because they're not there?
I would say, any resignation letter, resignation.
Or effective immediately if there's not one there.
Or must be filled within 180 days. Well,
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so
If
that
they
would,
resign on day 180,
or 179.
179,
Does that mean?
are we gonna go through this,
You've
or
got
do
one
we,
day to do it.
yeah,
So like special emergency council meeting to appoint someone, or you just let it ride and then leave it open?
No, I think the rule is it's vacated on this day and that triggers the
Yeah, then
logic.
it triggers the,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so too.
That makes sense. We still don't know what gets triggered.
Sorta. We've got the first choice is, are we before or after 180 days? And then the next is who are those next candidates willing to accept the nomination?
Okay,
Or the appointment, I should say.
so let's say if a position is vacated, well, see, here's another question now. If a person has served 3 years, right, and then they resign in the first 180 days of a new election, a new year, do we go to the most recent election or the one when they ran?
No.
No, the
most recent.
Most recent, right?
Most recent, that's, I
Yeah.
think that's clear, yeah.
But we need to clarify that too,
Yeah, I
then,
think
right?
that's restated.
Yeah.
And if we go to districts and, no, let's assume we go to districts and there's somebody elected each time. Otherwise, what you just talked about could be 2 years earlier, 2 elections.
Yeah, I think we
We didn't decide.
if we have the combo of district and
Right.
at large, then not every district will have an election every year.
right.
That's my point.
But if we are split into districts and there's one being elected in each election cycle, but then this appointment maybe create 2 vacancies in a single district that's gonna be elected, so then you're running for the 2-year term and the 4-year term.
And then we can,
And that's fair.
That makes sense, I'm just trying to play it out in my head to make sure we've got the wording in here to handle that.
Suggest that one or more of you come up with some specific language you want to consider at a later date.
Yeah.
So that you've had a chance to go through all these different scenarios. So you're chewing up a lot of time here and you got a lot of other issues to deal with.
Yes. I was just looking at the clock too.
That's true.
So do we vote?
okay, so,
I'll try to write it while you guys move.
alright, then, you're gonna do it now? Or just we can bring this up during our go back next meeting,
Sure, but I'm just gonna
Yeah.
write it and send it to everybody right now.
okay? Then yeah, we can discuss that, but yeah, that's definitely a go back then, cause we need to figure out. Okay, I think we've kinda settled on that we needed a vacancy section, and we never assigned anyone to actually write it, that's on me, sorry. Let's see. So who's gonna be, Adam, you're gonna come up with the wording for that?
Yeah, it's really just gonna be a draft to get this,
Okay,
give us something to work with.
And then I can add in the things from Louisville that we talked about earlier that
okay. Then let's move on to section 4, or article 4, finally. Although this one was fairly simple, I felt, so I'm not too upset that we spent a lot of time on the vacancies, but. Okay, did anyone have anything for section 401? For the mayor specifically?
Hang on, I gotta get on the right thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess just to get things started,
No, I get it.
I looked at 401 4B. It says the unilateral action taken by mayor during an emergency shall be temporary in nature. Temporary means what specifically? Is there like a statutory definition of temporary for emergency powers?
Must be renewed every.
Yeah, some charters and codes, the Louisville or the Erie code, the emergency action can only take place for like 7 days until it's ratified by the board or the council.
Okay, so that means once an emergency action is taken, it would trigger a council meeting regardless, so that the action can be.
It
That's
does
what it says
say
in B.
it does, it
say
says
until
shall
the
be
council.
effective only until the council is convened to ratify.
Right, but it doesn't put a time limit on.
So then you would wanna put the time limit that it's until the next scheduled meeting.
Yeah,
Have
No,
that,
that's what I was thinking is
In A-
no, I
because,
agree.
Okay, in A, it says the council shall convene the council, but doesn't have a time limit, so
Yeah.
at the end, I think what you're saying is the end of A, we should say
Until the
within
next
4
regular.
weeks or something.
I was just
Until
gonna
the
say until the
regularly
next
scheduled
regular.
meeting.
Oh, okay, so
Yep.
so
I'm good
then
with that.
why does the mayor need to convene the council?
That's what I'm saying, is like we'd replace like
Take out that last clause.
yeah, so it would just be shall be effective until the next
Yeah.
regularly scheduled council meeting. Where the council can vote on the,
Wait, I'm talking about in A, the last clause of A. It says the mayor shall convene the council.
oh, okay.
If the emergency situation continues.
So either you're saying they will convene the council or they won't.
Okay, well, my issue, I guess, was with the wording on unilateral action shall be temporary in nature and temporary is not defined.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Right, until, it says it's temporary until the council is convened.
Right, but again, it doesn't tell the mayor shall convene the council, it doesn't say how long he
Yeah,
has
no,
to.
that's what I'm saying, so what I'm saying is, do you want it at the end of A, shall convene the council within X number of days or until the next council meeting?
If it's an emergency, I would think you wouldn't wanna wait.
Yeah, I know, I'm agreeing.
So-
So I'm saying, shall convene the council
Within-
within 1 week or something.
So-
What is a history of such
So when we-
emergencies?
Yeah, when we went to COVID, did they have meetings every week?
Actually, there's a whole section of state law that requires you to have an emergency manager, and that manager is empowered with certain rights or authority under the state law. And those provisions are actually incorporated into the Erie code that spells out the town administrator is the emergency manager and can do all these actions, different actions, and they're only effective for 7 days unless they're ratified by the board. So you've got some state law provisions that spell out lots of different requirements that you have that are in state law. And I think there are a number of different ways the charters address this. This one's pretty small, some of them are larger.
So then, I guess my suggestion would be under A, the mayor shall convene the council within 14 days.
I would think if it's emergency, I think 7.
7?
I agree.
Okay. So if there's an emergency declaration and the mayor takes emergency powers, the mayor shall convene the council within 7 days, which may take such action as it deems necessary, and then any unilateral action taken by the mayor during the emergency shall be temporary in nature, and the duration shall be effective only until the council is convened. So that then B can remain as written, and we just put the 7-day time limit in A.
Yes.
You may have difficulty convening people within 7 days of some horrible thing.
Marshall Fire.
How are you gonna get everyone together in a room or even over?
We still have Zoom
Well,
provisions.
Or something like that.
Yeah, if it's okay to meet virtually, if the internet's up, like we don't know what's going on.
If the internet goes down, there's a lot more issues going on. There's a lot more at stake.
That's why we need the
But
government.
that's why you have the emergency manager.
Right.
Cause
So, but
if
like,
there's an emergency like that, the town staff is busy trying to take care of everything.
well, yeah, so this is about the authority of the mayor, so once we get to the town manager section, we can put them in as a default emergency manager unless otherwise designated.
Yeah, all of that can be done through ordinance,
Yeah.
and the ordinance has to comply with the state law.
And the state, but does the state law define the town manager as a default emergency manager? I thought you said that was in the Erie code.
It's in the Erie code, but I think it's kind of default. The Erie code spells it out more clearly, but it mimics what's in the state code.
Okay.
So just say by ordinance.
The one concern I had with this one was it doesn't really define what an emergency is, so in case of an emergency, the mayor shall assume. The Louisville code has some provisions that define what an emergency is, so I would encourage you to have a little more specificity on what an emergency is.
What does Louisville say?
It says an emergency means a matter which could not have been reasonably anticipated or foreseen, and on which immediate action is genuinely and urgently necessary for the preservation of public health, safety, or welfare.
I like that.
Okay.
And that's just defined in the
Oh.
definition section.
But what they also say is emergency special meetings shall be called by the city clerk on request of the city manager or any 4 members shall be held at least 24 hours. It doesn't say. I thought it said within 24 at first.
No,
That's really
Cause I
short.
think that's illegal within 24 hours.
In fact, we said, well,
Cause
So
that
at least
is,
24
that is a
hours.
state open meetings law issue. Okay. So we don't have a definition section yet. Are we planning to make one?
I think we have
I
to.
think we should.
Okay.
Well, that or gets put in here.
No,
Yeah.
I
think it'll be
there's gonna be
cleaner to
enough of
have
them, we
definition.
should have one.
I think it'll be cleaner to have just the definitions.
I agree.
You have to reference to that.
You don't have to reference it, if you said
Oh,
emergency,
emergency, I
then
see
they
what
can
you're saying.
go into
Yeah,
the
I
definitions
see.
for emergency.
And then we
I
can,
see
like,
what
that's
you're
where we can move that thing that says the town council
Yeah, the
includes the
council,
mayor, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Some people put definitions first, some people put it last.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
so section 4 here, 401. 4, we're gonna pull that definition from the Louisville Charter for an emergency, right, and stick it in the emergencies or the definition section. Everyone agrees with what Malcolm read out loud?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll use that as the definition for an emergency. And then, in case of an emergency, mayor shall assume the authority to execute any action necessary for protection of life or property. And then in A, we'll put a time limit of, they have to call a full council meeting within 7 days.
Are we feeling like 7 days is too short?
If it's a real emergency, I would say,
I think so, it does seem short, and if we give them, like, they can convene the next day if they're available.
Yeah.
But if it's within 7 days, that turns it, and they don't meet until 8 days, that's breaking the charter and illegal, how does that
Yeah,
work?
what happens then? There has to be some safety net at that point. That's when the town manager just takes over, or was it the mayor in that?
the mayor, this is the mayor section, so the mayor would just continue.
Mhm.
That's the thing, though, like, how do you, I think what this is trying to do, or my thought here was, you don't want like a rogue mayor to just declare an
Season
emergency
or-
and shut down the, town hall
Yeah.
and say no more meetings until we get this cleared up and they have unilateral power, right?
That's true, yep.
I mean, I think putting a time limit makes sense.
What about
Right.
10 days?
Or we could say as soon as possible, within 14 days, if you wanna do that.
It's not really an emergency.
I know, I said
Yeah,
7, I'm the one who said 7, so.
I was just saying 7 is pretty fast, but 10 is 3 more than that, so it's not a whole lot different. I think between 7, 10 and 14, it's really irrelevant. If you can get everyone together, you can get them together within 7 days. If you can't, then there's some other big problems going on.
So what happens, maybe to prevent this being an issue, like within 7 days, emergency authority then transfers to town administrator.
Well, then that's an unelected person making decisions for the town.
Yeah, the mayor has to declare that there's an emergency before any of that happens.
Yeah.
So mayor declares, then it triggers,
And to just prevent the mayor from maintaining emergency power indefinitely, you would transfer that power. If the mayor thinks it's enough of an emergency and you can't have a council meeting within an X number of days, then rather than them maintaining emergency power, it goes to someone else. Essentially transfers that emergency
Mayor
power
Pro
out.
Tem?
That would be what I would think. It would
But I mean, if
be
they're-
over 10.
Yeah,
But in theory, they would hopefully be able to get together within those 7 days.
right.
Let's say there's something major going on and they can't, but then do we really need to I don't know.
Then it's back to what we have now. Which is they will convene the council and not have a time limit set.
yeah, the existing code
Yeah.
says the board of trustees shall convene to perform its legislative powers as the situation demands, and shall receive reports through the emergency manager and evaluate and enact policy and other support as necessary. So it really is trying to vest as much responsibility in the council, the board, as possible. It only happens when the mayor declares an emergency. That only lasts for a limited amount of time until it's ratified by the council. So it's attempting to keep the authority with the council, but enable quick action to respond to any emergency.
How about if we say within 14 days? That way there's a time limit on it, but presumably they would be able to get together
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's only 14 days, or it's some number of time, that this emergency power, or this declaration of emergency happens until it's ratified. I think the ratification is really important.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And that we already have in here.
And then what it means to ratify an emergency, that's all laid out in state statute, like you just said, right? It's, you designate an emergency manager who will, give regular reports to town council. Was that state or was that one of the charters you were looking at?
I'm looking at the Erie code
Oh,
at this
okay.
point. And actually in the Erie code, the emergency only lasts for 7 days unless the board approves a longer duration. So it essentially requires the board to be within that 7-day period, or it lapses.
And then I guess the mayor could just declare another
Declare an
emergency.
emergency, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts on that? How to specify any of this? Or should we just leave it up to how we have the code written?
I think leaving it to the
Let's leave it
code.
for now. I
And
mean,
by
I
the
could,
way,
I could see putting, basically a limit after 7 days and that the mayor cannot renew it unless council approves.
Yeah.
I mean, could be written that way, or we could refer back to.
But then you don't wanna hamstring
Exactly.
a mayor in a
Exactly.
real
If
emergency.
it's truly, if it's
Yeah.
truly an emergency, you know,
Right.
so,
But you could do 14 days, and that would in theory give them enough time to get together to say, we need to continue this, or,
but
I
that
still
would go-
think
that
7
would
is
go-
better, but
Do you wanna give council the power then to remove the mayor if things go sideways?
but then,
That's what I just.
no.
So how about we leave it kind of how it is?
and default, and, or maybe say something about ordinance.
Yeah, and so the mayor shall convene the council as soon as safe,
As soon as reasonably possible.
yeah. As soon as, as soon as possible as allowed for by the emergency. And then, cause that does put a little bit of a halter on just indefinite or whatever. And the council would, and then the handling of the emergency shall be handled by ordinance. And so that's where the code specific, like emergency manager and all of that would go into. Any thoughts?
Timeframe. I think
Yeah.
just button it up with
Something? You want some
Something.
time frame?
something, just,
I think if we're gonna do it, we should put a time frame because even saying as soon as possible is still
Yeah.
subjective. So either there is a time frame or there's not, I feel like.
I mean, there's a, if you put reasonable, that's a legal, you could argue that legally at some point, couldn't you? Is that?
Is reasonable?
No.
Yeah.
it's,
Do you really think they,
you would
we were in a
hope-
discussion as somebody's thinking that there's not going to willingly try to address this issue.
I just think if they're unable to do it,
Yeah, I know, and
Yeah.
that's a different, in which case it doesn't matter what we say.
yeah, which, I mean, so reasonable, I'm thinking if they're unable to do it, then it's reasonable that they can't convene.
Right.
But
So
if they're able to do it by walking somewhere,
they would do it.
it's reasonable.
So yeah, what if we leave it as is and then leave it up to the existing code?
Yeah,
Like-
just say ordinance, which I think Malcolm had said is 7 days for,
Yeah.
Okay. So do we wanna just leave 4 as is, subsection 4?
we, adding the definition of emergency, by the way, I did email it to you.
Yeah, I got it, I pulled that in. And that was, you pulled that from Louisville, yeah.
Ooh, I think when we get definitions, there's gonna be several we're gonna look at and just pick what makes sense.
Okay, so,
And then when we started talking about what happens next, if the mayor versus mayor pro tem and stuff, that's what section, or item 5 is talking about.
okay, where's the
Just
line
like-
of, did we have a line of succession defined?
Not yet.
Not
No.
yet. I don't think we've gotten to the.
Okay, so if we're good with leaving 4 as is. Then we have a question on reasonable being a legally enforceable term, if that is, then we can add that in. Okay, so then up to subsection 5. The succession isn't laid out anywhere else in like the Eagle Charter, right? It was just in here.
Yeah, there again, the Louisville Charter has pretty good succession talks about if the mayor is unable to perform, then it goes to the mayor pro tem, then the city council member most senior in length of service, then in the event two or more members have the same seniority, then by the city council member whose last name begins with the letter at the close. So it's very specific, so you know who's in control.
Does it go down into town, like department heads or appointed?
It has a and this isn't in their charter, I think there's a reference that says there's an ordinance that requires, at least at the staff level, the city manager needs to publish a new succession plan every year, specifying who the actual naming the individual doing that.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, it spells it out.
What section is that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Let's see, emergency.
What about the succession in there?
Are we okay with how that was laid out then? Just go through, have clearly defined succession through the council and then require an ordinance or require that the town manager maintains a succession plan that would apply if no council member is able to perform their duties.
That's not what Louisville does, they're clearly, let's see, I gotta go, it's been a while since I looked at that.
The Louisville one is definitely one of those
I'm not
that's
finding
like
it in
super
Louisville's
detailed.
Right, there's this very.
Cause there was like that there's like what, 1960? That's when they were supposed to,
2001.
oh,
That's when they
Louisville.
did their charter.
2001.
Lafayette was 60, that's right. I always get those cities confused.
There's actually amendments in 2009.
The provisions that apply for staff are, they just say if the city manager is unable to do these things, then this is the succession for staff. It doesn't delegate to the city manager or
Okay.
the council authority.
So it just has the straight line all the way down.
No, I think there's a hard stop.
Through the elected people.
There's, yeah, council, and then if there's a problem with staff, city manager, then there's another succession plan.
Okay,
Right.
so it has a separate succession line.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is the one for the council.
It should just be elected officials, I would think.
Yeah, just go through the line of elected officials.
Right, but then, Hillary brings up a good point, says, how do you, once the mayor and mayor pro tem are not available, what do you do?
Length
Length
of
of
service,
service.
length of service,
Link the service.
and
For sure.
alphabetical or flip a coin.
Like the service.
Link the
No,
service.
the length of service first, yeah.
And then,
But if there's a
And
tie
then-
of length.
If there's a tie of length of service, yeah,
Yeah.
there could
Oh,
be.
Because there will
then
be.
alphabetical.
There will
Could
be.
be.
then alphabetical.
Then alphabetical.
I'm changing my last name right
No,
now.
that's the-
I think flip a coin.
Used
I
to
like
be
flip
an
a
A.
coin better than nothing.
Flip a coin's better than alphabetical. Oh, well, actually, my last name is B, so maybe. Flip a coin, I think, is more
I'm
fair.
just saying, all the council should never be on the same plane.
Put that in the charter.
What if there aren't planes in the future?
No teleporting via the same path.
Right.
Okay, so line of succession, we want mayor pro tem, then
Mhm.
council through seniority,
Mm-hmm.
through length of service, I guess, completed service to the
No, time as council member.
time as council member, yeah, that's another, okay. Seniority through time of council member as time,
Or time as elected service for town of Erie, because they could be mayor and then council.
Well, but they're mayor,
No, they
No,
could be
then
mayor
council.
Oh, and then,
become
and then a
council.
council.
Rare, I don't think
Right.
it's that, I think, but
It still count, I would think it counts as time of service.
time of service.
Yeah.
Time
Time
served
of service,
as,
time of
As a
elected
council
service.
member.
As a
because
council,
that's-
as a council member.
Yeah, with council includes
Yeah,
mayor.
doesn't count if you're on the tree board.
ouch.
I'm kidding.
Ouch.
Do that.
Personal.
Okay, so we want the line of succession wording in here. We can pull from Louisville because they have it clearly laid out that way, right?
I didn't see it in Louisville, so you found it?
It's actually in their code.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
not in the
it's not in the charter.
But she mentions like officers and defining town officers in some situations can include the appointed officials of the town. Like the people that the council appoints, right? Cause yeah, defining town officers, and then she says,
Where are you?
Yeah.
I was looking through like that comment next to subsection 5.
Just the first comment.
Right, and the first comment refers down to 406, which is something about like the phrase officers of the town, right? And officers of the town is not defined. And she says that definition of what is a town officer could be useful when you're talking about line of succession as well.
Okay, but then, if I'm following this right, which I don't know that I am, but that's gonna intermingle elected and staff.
But only like if no council member is available to perform their duty, then basically if the entire council is taken out at once for whatever reason, then we have another person who would act as mayor. And it would start with the town manager, cause the council appoints the town manager.
Right.
And then it would go through the list of
Other
appointed,
appointed people.
yeah, then the town attorney, municipal judge.
Right.
I'll throw out one other thing, you could put planning, since they're the ones that are interviewed by council,
Right,
and they're the only board appointed by council.
but then we'd have to define them
I'm just
in the charter, that,
agreed.
cause we'd have, yeah.
It may complicate the matter, but
It does complicate it in my mind because the appointment or the hiring of these officers is a pretty, there's a much more lengthy process and complicated process than it is to appoint planning commission members. And so the trust put into these officers and the inspection they go through prior to getting this job is more than the planning commission. So I think it is appropriate to I guess if we had to succeed, to defer to the town manager and then beyond. But only to the point where they're appointed by town, by it would be the attorney, the judge, the manager, and that's it. Yeah, that's it.
I was gonna
I thought the clerk was, but no.
I was gonna suggest we make the clerk an appointed as well, just cause that's a lot of power.
I think it's also kind of difficult to hire the clerk.
Is it?
I
don't know, I have no clue like what's involved.
If you appoint them, then they have to go through if you hire the clerk, then they have to go through the same process as Malcolm. Correct?
It's
Yeah, and I would advocate strongly that the clerk be appointed by the manager, because otherwise you get into a chain of command issue. And that has created problems in other jurisdictions.
I mean,
Part of it is you protect the staff from the political,
right,
the power, the different
But-
political parties, yeah.
but like as a town clerk, you have say over elections, which is major. And
I don't have say over.
well, you have like, cause there's elsewhere we said their qualifications and stuff is up to discretion of town clerk. Right?
County clerks are elected, right?
But town clerks follow states.
We follow state
State
statutes.
Okay.
So it's not like we make them up. We don't sit up there in our office and write these little things that are gonna take effect. We follow state statutes.
Okay.
And and most clerks have attended what's called institute, and they are certified clerks.
Okay.
So,
So in your opinion, it creates like an undue burden on the process if clerk has to be appointed.
Because then the clerk sort of reports to the council, as opposed to, like right now, she's my manager. And then from there, it goes up the chain, whereas I would report to the council and then I really wouldn't be I don't know how that works actually.
Well, then I guess
It's
the
a
council
totally
would
different sort
have
of chain of command is what it is.
I saw it in a few other charters that the clerk and the police chief are appointed by the council.
I've seen that.
And
I will say that the town clerk position moved over a few times while I was in office, and having to go through a process to hire that would have been distracting.
And I would say, not that I'm planning on leaving, but town clerk positions are open a lot.
okay, so we don't wanna make it harder to fill
Yeah,
those
it'll be,
positions.
yeah, and I would just say sometimes you don't always get the best candidates for a clerk position, so.
Actually, I think you've convinced me that it shouldn't be, because then they are beholden to the council, and there's also potential for undue influence in future elections that way. Okay, I guess, yeah, we kind of tangented off of the line of succession question though. So do we wanna include the appointed positions in the line of succession?
Yeah, I think yeah.
Okay, not including the boards and commissions for now.
No.
No.
Okay, so yeah, we'll pull from Louisville,
Or we could say by ordinance, which is where Louisville has it.
is it? No, it's it's in their ordinance, okay.
Where we,
So do we wanna include a hard line of succession in the charter or have it set by ordinance?
Today it's up by ordinance in Erie, isn't it? Or is it not said
So
anywhere?
basically what Hillary is saying here is that you define what town officers are.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying appointed positions, you you define what the town officers are, and those are the ones that would
Would fall
fall
under.
into that line of succession.
Okay, so yeah, I'm good with that, so in 5, we would say orderly line succession of officers, and then in our definition section, we would say the officers include the town council members and those appointed, and the town staff that are appointed by town council members.
yes,
In a particular order.
Yes.
And then we'll define the order in here based on the Louisville, which was, yeah. But do we wanna set that order in the charter?
Or do we wanna do it by ordinance?
That was the
Which
question.
is what Louisville does.
well, when I read the part that said the town manager has to rewrite that every year, I thought that was a little burdensome.
Well, that's only for his own line of succession, not for the council.
Okay.
And that'll happen by default if we don't say anything about it in here, right?
Yeah, it just made it clear for everybody, okay, in an emergency, here's who you need to go to.
Yeah, is there any harm in putting it in this?
I'm okay
In the
with
event
it.
of an emergency, we hope that people aren't having to like run and find a bunch of documents.
Yeah, I think stability would be nice here, is just have it laid out saying, here's the line of succession, here are the people you go down the list,
Yeah.
You
and
don't
here's
want,
how the order.
you don't want another Al Haig situation?
Okay, so
people
Louisville,
may
so we'll pull the wording from Louisville Charter about how you go down the list of succession. And we'll define the list as including the council and those appointed by the council, town staff. Should we also include wording, or I guess that goes under the town manager, we'll talk about how he defines his line of succession.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone have anything else here for subsection 5 or anything under 401 for the mayor? I guess, sorry, we're hitting 8:30.
Yes.
We're still going, we still got a lot in 4 and 5. How much are people ready to continue, or is there a lot of comments that people have throughout this section and the rest of it?
I'm okay to keep.
Anyone have a conflict that requires immediate adjournment?
No, no conflict.
Can you take a little break and walk around a little bit?
Yeah, we'll take a break. That's a good time for it. I'll put up what we have as far as this section for 401. And then we can pick up again at 402 at 8:40.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, temporary recess until then.
Everyone's trying to send a text.
I'm gonna be late.
Yes, another late night.
My husband just assumed he'd be in bed by the time I got home, so. That's wishful thinking for him, that means the kids would be in bed too.
Better bringing slippers to change into.
Double layer my socks.
Once again, we appreciate you guys sticking
for years.
with us. Kicker and whine about inconsequential things.
To the town manager section as we came.
Yes, I know we need you here for that part.
Capella Park, J Road.
Oh, did you? I was just texting Gabby and saying like,
north
she's like, I think it's good, let me know.
Like
Just
up
now?
at 19
No, like 20
Iris.
minutes ago.
Oh shoot, let me text her.
And
I assume it's still being recorded.
my grandparents
I got her.
lived
It
out
looks like
of
it's
the
flashing, so
East
it's
Is
still
she
being
okay?
recorded.
Does she know that?
Oh,
Okay, I'll
So,
let me
yeah.
text her.
I lived in Edinburgh for a little bit with my.
Yeah, sorry, we will not
My
force
father-in-law
you to,
lived in
that's the parts that we
Heatherwood.
need your
Oh, my
input
mom
on.
grew up there.
To a
So my,
meeting,
yes,
so-
my in-laws lived in Heatherwood
I
until my
think your next
father-in-law
meeting,
burned the
you're
house
not
down,
available.
so.
Or was it the one
My
after?
mom
that?
grew up in
I don't
Heatherwood.
actually know how to tag.
I'm the third generation.
I was trying to think if I even had any.
I was so I wanted to graduate from Lower High because I would have been the third generation. But we
Jackets for my
moved
Saturday.
just before my freshman year to Longmont,
Oh.
so it's Longmont High.
Personally delivered.
But it's
I
my
want me to
grandfather
know where
graduated
they
from
live.
Longmont, so I was like,
That's
oh, I
scary.
guess he's still.
I think I saw
Are
you
you
guys
creepy or
walking through
something?
that.
I don't know.
I saw you guys walking through the library today.
Maybe they just
My
thought it
internet
would be
went out, so I
easier
was
for
working
you.
from there and
I
the
guess.
kids were
Yeah.
running around, so.
Library is our meeting space.
Maybe I'll just call her.
And
Yeah, I don't know what's going, she said that she thought it was working again, what did she say?
Yeah, that's what I thought last one I got was.
Town of Erie is not live on YouTube.
You're supposed to. You're welcome.
Candace, did you say you went to Boulder High? I did too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I graduated in '01.
Oh, I graduated in '98.
Thank you.
I know.
I graduated in '98.
Did you really?
Yeah, but not from Boulder.
God,
Not from Boulder.
I graduated in '01 from Texas.
98, I would have been there.
Me too.
I just was
Freshman.
younger.
I feel like I should grab my
You
walker.
probably knew. Oh.
If you graduated in '98, you're not that far.
Let me grab my walker.
Would I have been a sophomore?
Brian, I'm gonna borrow your pen, thanks.
Would have been a freshman.
Freshman.
Who did I know that was senior?
You guys
Are talking about?
When we graduated
When we graduated, who did
high
we know?
school, because they both went to Boulder High.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
High school. Yeah.
Did you know Shelley Nielsen?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm Facebook friends with her too.
I was, I'm not Facebook friends with her, but I was on cheer with her.
My mother-in-law was a teacher, Cheryl Freeman.
That doesn't sound familiar.
She was, she had like academic decathlon
Oh, yeah.
and I wanna say English.
I don't remember. Well, Shelley was a bad influence. She had a driver's license and I didn't. She didn't need to meet boys and
It's
But
so
she has,
14.
she has 2 sons now.
Good for her.
It's so funny having grown kids now, like, and I go back and look at the things that I did when I was in high school, and I would have like never let my kids, like, you can't do that, I know what happens.
You know, Ben owns Fox that went to Boulder High the same time we were there then
It was
too.
Hinckley that shot him,
Candace, you know him?
fine,
I'm sorry,
because he was a
Ben
love
owns
with
Fox
Judy
Dog.
Foster
When we come back out.
actress,
No.
and
He
so
went to
was
Boulder
a
High,
movie
he must have been
with
like
Judy
a few
Foster
years
in
older
it.
than you.
So it was good,
We'll
he
just go
shot.
with that.
I don't know him. I
So
know,
he's doing it to impress her.
It's not yours.
I'm trying to think of the other people that I know.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. No. Okay.
I knew mostly.
Right,
I think it was just that, for parole, did they parole him? Or
I think they may have, I'm trying to remember.
I thought they did.
Somebody has
They
come
said
down
that
here.
he
I think they
was,
did.
That machine, and so we need to
No,
probably reboot it, but we can't.
Okay.
Sirhan,
Because
Sirhan.
it's doing the
Was
actual
it?
official recording, so
Okay.
she's rebooting.
Okay, I thought he was,
Zoom
one of them was
is-
rejected.
after the.
So.
I thought it was Ron Sirhan, like just, well, maybe he was just at from Rollins, maybe I'm thinking
Yeah.
backwards.
Statement.
I don't remember.
Okay,
When we get back.
thanks, Amy.
Good thing.
Let me just make a quick statement, because I don't have any issues with the actual live stream, the recording of it. It's just the live stream that's issues, so.
But I guess there's
I
several people on
emailed
the
the
show who
statement
weren't for it.
before I came. My family's all like, oh, you're having a meeting tonight. They go, we're on our own. I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to mean, you're on your own? Because I'm not gonna be here to feed you?
My husband always says the same
Yeah.
thing, "Oh, tonight," and I'm like,
I don't think so, I think she turned that.
You know, so,
bad for you.
yeah, so they're like, oh, we're gonna go out to dinner, and I'm like,
Without me, perfect, thanks, guys. That's why I made a decision that my family would go out for dinner before this tonight, for today.
it was one thing I don't miss about having littles, is trying to eat out.
Yeah, it's fun. And their feet are on the table.
I remember
Bribery.
from Pam too.
I'm like,
She was just telling me about like
right now.
her year.
I remember
when she was like,
one
and I
time
think
being
about the
out
best parts of
with
my
the kids and like just frantically trying to clean the table because the kids made a mess.
Yes.
And the waitress goes, no,
because you know I was
you're not a mountain
little.
knight, because you're in my restaurant, I'll clean your table.
They're like, I'll take some
And I
wine.
was just like, I was like trying so not to cry, I was like,
I had to bribe my kid with the eye drops for the pink eye. She's like, they sting, and I was like, I'll give you whatever she gives. Please, just get these in your eye. Like I said, I never had it, so I don't know if they sting or not, but she said they did. And I felt bad.
I think it's supposed to be because the eye's so irritated anyway,
Yeah,
anything you put in there
it's
is.
gonna sting. Yeah, for sure.
Did you know you only have feeling in the front of your eye and your cornea, which is what's over your iris? The white part of your eye there is now nerves, so you don't feel it like you do the part over your iris, which is the cornea. And there was no feeling inside your eye either, so like when you get cataract surgery, they only have to numb the surface, not the inside, so you have no nerve in your eye.
Oh, you got it.
Start time is 7.
Yeah, no worries, well, you gotta figure it out.
We'll make it 6:30,
Yeah.
no doubt, but
Yeah, I could have swore that you were like the first one who responded.
I did respond saying, I'll talk to the people, but then realized that I can't just send an email about things like that, can I? Because of open meetings?
No, they can respond individually to you.
Oh, okay.
You can send an email to all of them saying this is what we're proposing, and then they can respond individually to you.
Oh, okay,
They just can't repile.
okay.
I don't know what all of those are gonna stick.
Okay,
And they all fall off at the sizes for each of the people.
okay, okay. Thanks.
Do you switch it for your board?
Yeah. Brian's inspired me. We're gonna stand outside for 2 weeks or 2 days on cold weekends.
That makes sense.
Oh, they didn't brand them for you. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I know you.
Yeah, I like
Got
the
all
free
the
boards.
notes. Exactly.
Okay, it's coming out of their budget.
What budget?
You know, the budget that just goes to off swag.
That budget that they use to flip the coin.
Yeah, all the, like the name Yeah.
Ensures that use up all of your guys' budget.
Yeah. I get extra name tags, so I'm
They-
part of the
they
problem.
actually-
We usually get them at the end of the year. They have Town of Erie from us,
We don't have
Sustainability Advisory.
That's it, you're just the town of Erie.
Because they need.
No, I was told we don't.
I'm sure you have a bunch.
Yeah, exactly.
3 boards of fifth, you can say. You want to
Really?
put that on there and you
Because I asked, do I
say,
need to submit a budget, I told no.
add it on, or how does that work?
Well, we need to see if she ordered it that way or not. Okay, so we'll check.
We'll check.
We'll
You
find
go-
out.
Go and keep yours, but
So
we'll
that's what we
send
did
those
the-
recipes out.
Okay, yeah, they're all just generic.
Oh, the hats, it's just the hats?
And the jackets, they all just
They
have
can't
logos
hear us
on them.
anyway,
This is true.
on the live stream anyway.
So we'll have to see how she ordered it. Yeah, we'll see how she
Right,
ordered
we're
it.
back
All the way
at,
over, all the way around.
Over there,
That's
oh.
part of one.
back at
Sign.
8:40.
Just wait a minute, that one?
Right, call to order again, so let's continue where we were.
Before we get started,
Yes.
just for the record, the live stream recording, or not the recording, the live stream dropped off at some point in the first, just before we went to, break. It has been restarted again. The entire thing is recorded, and so tomorrow there will be a full recording. We can't reset the box that's giving us issues right now because it will mess with the actual official recording, so.
Okay. So just to kind of pick up where we were, the line of succession, we'll define that, and we'll define including the town appointed officials as the town officers. So just looking at who are appointed, we need to decide on the order, I guess, whether town attorney outranks the municipal judge or not. Cause town manager, then who? Any thoughts?
The town attorney and the judge.
The council meets with the attorney a whole lot and they know
Okay.
a lot about what's going on. The judge pretty much just does municipal judge stuff.
Okay, so then I'm hearing a proposal for town attorney and then municipal judge?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that'll be our line of officers. Okay, on to 402, hooray. So Malcolm passed out these handouts that have the Castle Pines charter provisions regarding the town manager.
Yeah, let me just say the Eagle charter provisions are fine, with one exception. If you go down to 402(3), the provision that says the town manager may only delegate to others the authority and duties prescribed to their positions to the extent allowed by ordinance or resolution. That just seems, it could be very confusing, because every time you'd have to consider, okay, let's see, is this delegation of authority to the deputy covered by some ordinance or resolution adopted in the past? There may be situations that come up. And in my mind, the Castle Pines charter is a better provision of, or a better way of including all of the authorities that the town manager has in one concise area. They seem to be sprinkled a little bit here and there, to some extent in the Eagle charter. Maybe it's like a little bit way better than it was stated and phrased in the Castle Pines. So I printed out a copy of that section of Castle Pines for your consideration.
But I have no problem just replacing that section with this one. Changing city to town as you did in the title.
Wait, you're talking about the powers and duties or some?
The entire section.
The whole thing, okay.
Yeah. It very clearly states that the manager serves at the pleasure of the council. It does add that the manager shall be chosen on the basis of qualifications with particular emphasis on experience and training. So that was, in my mind, an important thing to include in the charter. The dismissal is clearly at the The city council, town council is the final authority and they have the discretion to do that. And it lists the powers and duties of the manager. And that seemed like a pretty complete list. And including the hiring and retaining of the chief financial officer, the city clerk, and any other duties set out by ordinance or resolution. It was a good concise summary of the things that I consider my responsibility, and I think they're included in the Erie code.
I think things like risk management, which is not included in what we have now, is another important one. So,
Whose job is it to hire the police chief then right now?
It's mine.
So that's not in here.
Well, neither is Parks and Rec or Public Works, so like how specific should this be? You've got CFO in there.
Isn't that part of B? It's part of 7.3B, I thought.
Yeah.
Would be police chief.
Overseeing all
Oh, yeah,
aspects of city
departments.
function.
Yeah, okay, departments that report to someone, okay. Okay, if any, let's take 2 minutes then to go through this, just everyone on your own for the Castle Pine section. And if we're good with just replacing wholesale, we can do that.
What are you laughing
Sorry,
at?
I've been told we shouldn't get you guys crinkly bags because it's crazy loud on the recording.
So we need like a bowl, huh?
Sorry,
Sun
sorry,
chips.
Gabby.
You can use a paper
Now
towel.
you're laughing at some provision.
I thought you were too, I was like, wow, what's going on with that?
No, I was thinking, yeah, what section?
There we go.
Now you've done it.
No more crinkly bag. Although it's still crunchy.
Guys all get pudding now.
Okay, so this 7.3E, developing a plan for city council approval, which outlines the efficient operation of city businesses. So this is obviously the annual plan, I think, the annual plan that you used to bring in front of us, or you still bring in front of the board of trustees, and you get approval for various projects that are going on. Is that, or is this?
This one, yeah.
I don't wanna dictate how another town administrator wants to run their stuff, is what I'm
Yeah,
worried about.
that one goes a little far. I mean, it's when the manager may be temporarily unavailable. Okay, that's the line of succession.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so that one's not really necessary. Unless you think so.
Oh, I think I was talking about something different. So this is the succession.
Yes.
It doesn't anywhere in here say that the town manager shall develop a project plan for things that are gonna be tackled in the next year and report on that like you do currently for the board of trustees. And
That's under D?
That'd probably be under B.
What about H?
No.
Others,
Okay.
other by ordinance.
And by direction.
You think it falls under D?
I think it's more D, yeah.
Do we wanna, like you said, it's yearly, right? Do we wanna
Well,
put a
no,
time?
the thing is, I wanted to avoid trying to dictate the way a town manager wants to run their stuff, or, you know, if someone has a different style that Malcolm comes in with, and he or she wants to, instead of having this annual plan that he has, a project plan that he has been doing, it's a totally different style. I don't know what that could be, but I can imagine something different that could also be successful, but to dictate that here would not be good, in my opinion.
Okay, I think we're not, right?
We're not. I was trying to, I thought I had read it that way, but I didn't. One of the things that's a question in my mind is the prosecutor and how that's hired and who that reports to. And you know that there's been some difficulty in that, with that, the line of reporting going through either the police or through town administration and what that might cause in the clerk's office.
Is that covered under the municipal courts?
Well, this is the point where we're talking about who the manager hires.
Is this the town attorney or no?
Is it separate, prosecutor is separate from town attorney?
Prosecutor is separate from the town attorney, yes.
And in some jurisdictions, they're appointed by the board of trustees or the city council. And in my mind, that really it seems to work well. It's like the town attorney.
Well, as we're in this section 4 here, we're talking about the officers that appoint or that report to the city council. And we've got attorney and judge and town manager called out, but I wanted to plug town prosecutor also being thrown in here. And town clerk is in here too, so although a town clerk is called out as an employee that reports to the manager, so it's a little mixed the way it's laid out.
On that one, I would actually ask that you defer that discussion until Hillary is here, because I think she may have more experience on how that works in different communities. My experience has been Louisville, the prosecutor was appointed by the city council. Here, it's board of trustees, but it's not as clear as it could be, for sure.
There's, some confusion. Okay, so defer that.
So we wanna add another like town employee for 406, I guess it would go after town clerk for town prosecutor?
Yes.
I didn't realize we had one.
Yes, we do.
I just tried Googling for it and I couldn't see it. Didn't come up with anything.
That would be a go back, or come back.
And we'll give Hillary a warning that that's coming as a future discussion topic for when she's here next. Okay, so other than that though, for the town manager section, does anyone have any issues with just copy pasting Castle Pine section 7 as our section 402?
The question is, do we wanna keep E or not? 3E.
I think we were happy with the E is just the line of succession.
Yeah, so that's just like,
Do we wanna keep it in or?
yeah,
Yes.
Look at it,
we'd want the town manager to maintain his own line of succession, basically.
So,
Sorry, what, Adam?
No, that's right.
Okay.
do we wanna reword it or just leave it like it is? Cause that's not what it says.
It's, well, it doesn't use those words, but that's what it's trying to say.
So
Yeah,
do we-
that's what I'm saying, I think we should just say, shall write a line of succession
So
or
what do you,
specify.
what is your document called that you produce?
It's the line of succession in the event I'm unavailable. I can pull up, what did I call it?
Is that for like emergency unavailable or?
Yeah,
because
I think unexpectedly unavailable.
Well, there's in what the working charter, there's a line in here, the town manager may designate a town department head to function in their capacity during short absences.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit
Okay.
different,
That's a
but
little clearer.
Well, that's just vacation and that happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's, if you have a line of succession, that automatically is the default.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't give you the flexibility of designating someone who you want as your backup. But if your deputy is usually you're gonna be your backup anyways, and that'll be your town, that'll be in your plan under subsection E for.
Right, and it would spell out deputy, police chief, public works director, or whoever that line of succession, so.
So I
guess
think,
to be more clear here, it would be, I would say, town managers shall submit to town council a line of succession for instances when the town manager is unavailable.
Yeah.
And whether,
And just
and
stop
not
it
just
there.
illness or incapacity, just unavailable.
okay, then that will remove your flexibility of designating your own deputy for like when you're on vacation. Or like your own, like,
If you wanna use someone other than the deputy, you mean, someone.
Yeah.
Maybe the deputy's on vacation also.
yeah,
then it would go to the next.
But then it
No,
just goes
but
to the
would
next one.
eliminate that flexibility.
Cause yeah, the way that the Eagle one has it is just you say, this person is acting as town administrator while I'm gone. Whereas under the Castle Pines, it doesn't, right?
Right, but Malcolm was just saying he would write his own that would say the town manager would submit to council
Okay.
their line, his line,
Right.
their line of succession.
Right.
So that would give him all the flexibility, cause he's writing it, he's saying these are the people who would succeed me.
And you can change it at your whim because it's your,
The way I've written it in the past, it says it's deputy, police chief. And so if the deputy is not available, then the police chief is the one.
okay,
And the police chief also has one, and when she goes on vacation, she,
And when I am out of town, I would send a message to the council saying, I'll be out of town, Melissa's gonna be out of town too, so in this instance, Chief Stewart is gonna be acting.
okay.
So,
Okay, so that would replace, what your wording would replace E here.
Yes.
right. So I will write out exactly what that is for.
Okay, yeah, just send that to myself and Hillary, I guess, so that she
Send it
can
to everybody.
send it to everyone, yeah, and then, okay. So we're gonna take 402 and replace with section 7, I guess Article 7 of Castle Pines. And replace 7.3E with the wording from Malcolm.
It's the section 4 of this, that's really to protect town staff from council members trying to get them fired, is that how I'm reading it? Or forcing town manager to hire people?
Preventing the interference really, and that's a pretty standard provision in most charters.
I've seen it all around and I've seen some ways where some that give the council the authority to direct certain heads of departments, but it's really weird like how it's written.
The email from Mark was, right?
Yeah, so this section itself is directly in relation to what the email from Mark Gruber was referencing, like if the town council cannot tell, like, say, the police chief to go handle an issue specifically and it has to go through the town manager, then like that was his concern there. I'm wondering, like, we've already given the council the ability to order the town manager to do things by or it's not yet, I guess, we haven't gotten to that section, but the way it's written later in the Eagle Charter that we're working from, the town council can order the manager to take specific actions. And so if something like this came up, where, you know, I guess I sat down and talked with him, and one of the examples he gave was that there's a homeless person living in the community center, he just spends all his time in the hot tub, right? And the police can't, or the community center or the police can't get rid of him, Parks and Rec won't get rid of him or anything like that. If something like that where just like an edge case came up, the way it looks like it'll be laid out in the Eagle Charter, the council could order the manager to address the situation through ordinance.
And I guess I'd just add, it's actually really common that, not Erie specific, it's pretty common that, you know, a council will be divided and then people will try to, you know, sway someone to do what they want. And so this is protective of someone not sort of being approached by multiple different people asking them to do different things. So it filters through the town manager, and really the town manager's role is to get consensus from the whole board that that's the direction. So the town manager serves as that person to gather the whole group and say, is this the direction of the whole group? So that one person in the group can't sort of go off on their own and direct staff. So the town manager is really the person who brings the group together to say, is this the direction we want as a whole group? It is pretty common that people will want to sort of go on their own way and direct staff in their own way, and that creates a lot of stress for staff. Any jurisdiction will tell you that this is a common thing, and it can be a common reason why employees turn over if they don't really feel like they have direction from the whole board that's really clear about what they are to do, so.
I've seen this in most of the charters.
Yeah.
That's why,
Except the ones that have the strong council, this is pretty much standard. I guess my only question here, like, would this cause the way it's worded, it's only for the people who would be hired by the city manager. So that would not include the town attorney and the municipal judge. So can the council go around and order the town attorney and municipal judge to do things without going through the town manager?
Yes.
Yeah, they are separate positions.
And we wanna maintain that.
You're right. Yes.
Okay. So the way section 7 is written, the way I read it, it protects that. Cause it only applies to the people, although it then has employee of the city, so is the town attorney and the municipal judge an employee of the city? They're not.
They're not employees at this point.
Okay.
They're
Yeah, not-
contractors.
Okay.
What would they do? If they're appointed, they turn into employees
No.
or no? Okay.
You don't
But then
have to
it's-
be, they could be.
Yeah, they could be, but
yeah,
currently they are
currently
not, yeah.
contract.
Right.
It doesn't matter, I mean, the last sentence says they would go through administrative personnel or consultants would go through, or dealing
Yes.
with them would go through.
So is the town attorney a consultant then? No, it's not designated as that in any way, okay?
And then we should make sure we define consultant and contractor in the definition section.
Yeah. We'd have to,
'Cause
we'd have to define administrative personnel and consultants and what
Right.
those mean. Okay. Okay, so as far as this stands, we'll just replace 402 with section 7. We'll reword subsection E of 7.3. And that's it here. Okay, anyone have anything here for 402? Okay, moving on. 403, town attorney.
Hopefully that's straightforward.
Anyone have anything here? No. Seemed pretty straightforward, I guess. Okay. So then 404, municipal judge.
You don't wanna vote on judges?
Hmm?
Vote on judges like.
Oh
the
gosh.
same.
Please,
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have asked this for 403, it applies to both. Do we wanna change anything about the council specifying salary or compensation?
No, I think that's
That's fine,
fair,
okay.
yeah. Cause it'll be a contractor position, right?
So it's in the contract,
Yeah,
yes.
and depending
That's
on
fair.
how, like, if they just need an attorney, if we have a sitting attorney, we may not need like a full-time town attorney. And so it gives them flexibility to
Yeah,
set
that's fine.
compensation based on how much.
What about performance reviews? It's not in either the judge or attorneys, and
I did
it
see
is something that the town manager goes through.
And I did see it in some
They're
other things.
contractors though, I don't think you can do true performance reviews.
There are situations where you need to be able to provide feedback to one of these offices, not the town manager. And there's not really a way, or at least it'd be an ad hoc thing to do with anyone, and you would need to know that there's an issue prior to performing that feedback. For example, if there's a concern with the town attorney, but nobody knows about it, none of the council knows about it because it's all being kept, I wouldn't say quiet, but it's being handled by staff and attorney. Potentially, the council could provide some feedback because they are the one the attorney reports to that could help with that situation or hurt it, but would be an effective way for the people who hire and set that contract to know that something is going on. And without any performance reviews being put into play or reports of performance being fed up to the council, they don't know what's going on.
Who would do the review?
The council.
Oh, okay, so it's a council responsibility.
Well, I'm just putting it out there that there are times when things were happening that the council doesn't know anything about, and the council may have been able to affect
Right.
the acrimony.
Okay, so I have a clarifying question. When you say that this town attorney is a contractor, is this person a 1099 or is this person a W-2?
1099.
So you have to be very careful because 1099 people who are contractors can work under their own ethics, for lack of a better term. There's a better word for it. So you have to be very careful about what you can and cannot say to 1099 workers.
But isn't that something that the council could put in the contract
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
initially? Like, wouldn't that be something that the council would say, okay, and we're gonna, sit down and discuss?
Periodic reviews. I wouldn't call it a performance review.
Fine.
I get what you're saying though, yeah.
No, in this case, I would say the semantics in this case are important because you are limited to what you can and can't do with a 1099 worker.
Well, I don't wanna do anything outside of what we're allowed to do. I'm just saying that there are situations that arose during my time that it would have been nice to know ahead of time or have some type of feedback mechanism that things could be given to the council because they are the ultimate ones who make the decision of whether that person gets to retain their contract or not.
Right, yeah.
And without any knowledge of any problems, everything just goes on.
So do we wanna specify how they're removed, like by an affirmative vote?
No, I mean, I think that's already built in here.
I think it is, yeah.
So who writes the contract?
Town staff.
The attorney writes the contract.
By the
But they do it at the direction of the board, and the board.
The board has to approve it.
The board, dictates the terms and approves it.
What are your suggestions for putting, what would you wanna see in the charter?
I would like to see some type of review system, and I don't know that it has to be annual, although that might be the thing is it takes time to do a review. You don't know, as a town council member, you don't know exactly what's going on in the municipal judge. How the court is operating. And so to even be able to provide a performance review is almost impossible, because you don't interact with that person at all.
So it seems that would go in section 3, which is the responsibility of the council to do the reviews.
But we need to put it into the contract for each of these positions for legality's sake, right?
Right.
Come on, you guys have something to say here.
Well, I'll say something.
Okay.
First of all, how would you, staff are the ones that deal with these the most, with the judge and the town attorney. So it's really, you're gonna ask staff's opinion on how things are going.
Right.
Right? So I would think that in your conversations with the town manager.
Any problems would come up?
Yeah, you would just ask them, are there any problems? And if so, then that would escalate to be an issue where you start to have that conversation with the town manager. And then as the council, they go, hey, town attorney, seem to be some issues with you, we're gonna terminate your contract. Because if not, then staff can work with the town attorney if there's issues between them and work it out. Similar as coworkers do. I know they're not another employee, but.
Yeah, I personally don't think it's necessary to put it in the charter if the council should be doing annual evaluations of each of the positions, but they will decide whether or not that's necessary or not. And they can do that, or they could specify it by ordinance, but putting it in the charter, it doesn't really harm things, but I don't think it's necessary.
It does add a layer that you may not want to have in there.
I have a suggestion then. So one of the things that's in the Eagle Charter that's not in the Castle Pines that I just noticed for the town administrator is a regular reporting to the council. And so maybe we can put in a subsection for 7.3 that says the town manager shall report regularly. I guess we can put in a schedule, like, what is it now, at least once a month or every regular meeting of the town council? What is it now? Do you?
I do a written monthly report,
Written monthly?
yeah.
Okay, so if the town manager reports regularly to the town council, we can include like on the functioning of the town and performance of other town offices.
But doesn't that put those other offices at a disadvantage, because it's their peer who's talking about what's going on and you're not hearing it from them. Now, all that might do is trigger
Right,
an investigation or some kind of
It's just-
discussions, which you hope.
right, you
But-
wouldn't take only the word of the manager, well, you might, if you trust your manager, you would take their word, say, hey, this town attorney is not.
Yeah, but you also
working."
wanna trust your attorney and
Yeah.
your judge, and you wanna know that, they would come to you if there's some issue too.
But I think like the regular reporting, because you'd be the one with the most interactions with them, other than the town attorney, but at least the judge, you'd be the one with the most interactions with them. So rolling that up in your regular reporting would, I don't know if we wanna say specifically, like you're gonna report like tattle on them or anything, right?
Yeah, I would not wanna see that in the charter.
So,
In my mind, it's, the council's gonna determine, and they could say by ordinance, the town manager, town attorney, municipal court judge will do periodic reports to the council.
Okay.
And then they can decide whether that periodic means, yeah, we want it every month, or we want it every 6 months, or we want it annually. But leaving it up to the council to determine that by charter, and by ordinance.
so under like 403 and 404, we'd have a subsection 3, where it would just be, these people will also periodically report to the town council.
I think he's saying
No.
don't put anything in here.
Yeah, don't
It's
put
just-
it in the charter.
Section.
Yeah.
Add an ordinance.
If we're doing anywhere, it would be 3, I would think. But I don't know.
I just wanted to raise it, I think you're right, putting it in the charter is probably cumbersome or overly prescriptive. I'm just saying that there are potential situations with these direct offices when you really only interact with 2 of them. And it would be nice to be able to get feedback.
You would, I don't know, to me, you would hope that council before renewing a contract would automatically do that.
But these don't have renewal points, these are indeterminate, without a definite term.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I keep falling back to Tammy Tenoy's recommendation. She's the SURSA executive director, and she actually served as counsel for numerous home rule commissions. She keeps saying, keep it as simple as possible, because the more complexities you have, the more interpretations and potential conflicts. And it inhibits the council's flexibility, the more specific, which you may wanna do, not saying, but just.
Well, there's areas where we're inhibiting their flexibility on the way that they appoint vacancies or fill up vacancies, like there's ways, that we've already done some of that. You're right, I think as a general rule, we should lean towards as much flexibility as possible that we wanna give, but we're here with our various opinions and experiences to help try to direct this.
Are you able to give us any specific examples? Cause I'm having a hard time thinking like what situation you're trying to avoid. No names.
Well, it's kind of.
Except.
What can I say? You wanna do a sidebar?
Executive session, no.
You can imagine some potential ethical issues, and I don't know the details, obviously, but you can imagine some that could have come up where they did something that didn't get.
If there's a problem with one of these, I guess I've already stated it, like I know you may be having a hard time putting a
Yeah.
concrete example in your head, and I don't want to do that, especially in an open meeting. But with multiple positions reporting to the council, but only interacting with the council with 2 of them. That leaves at least 2, and maybe even another if we add the prosecutor into this, to operate with such autonomy that they may go outside of council's direction or may get into a situation with the town staff that might not be solvable at the level that it's happening, without the interaction of the reporting structure. I guess I'm not making it any more clear what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I
I
think,
understand.
yeah, I think. So you're just trying to enforce that reporting structure just so that things don't be an issue.
If we rely on the town manager to give us, we keep doing that. If the town council relies on the town manager to give them an update on what's going on amongst the other offices, you may not get a perfectly objective report. Or all the information that's necessary.
But how could you?
You
How
could if
could
you
you
asked, if you asked for an annual discussion with each of these people, or maybe some periodic amount of time.
I just don't, I agree with you, but I don't know that it belongs in the charter.
I hear you, and that's the point he was making, and that's probably true. I just want to put it on the table that there are potentials here, and we can intentionally not put it in the charter and let it be handled by ordinance.
This might be one of the things we ask Hillary, cause she would have been involved with some of the issues around this with other town charters. So
It seems like it's an HR type function in some ways, but.
Right, but there's no HR department here.
Yeah.
cause it's contractors that are hired by the council,
Yeah, I know,
so.
but
The city manager has section D reporting regularly to town council.
Yeah, I saw that, sorry, I
So
messed
if
that
you
up.
just put that in there, is that,
well, except what I heard Adam say was you can't always, it doesn't always necessarily make it up to.
Well, but I mean, I think Ben's saying you do that on all of them. You say reporting regularly to the city council on the functioning of that person's
Their role.
department.
Yeah.
But now we're in that area where we're adding things to the charter that, I don't know, may not need to be there. I think it should. I think some type of reporting back to the hiring body about how they feel their job is going would be helpful in lieu of an HR department or some type.
Yeah, cause there is no HR, so having some feedback mechanism would be useful. So maybe we do just pull that subsection D into each of these, or at least to be appointed by the council positions. Does anyone have any objection to that? Like just have it like regular reporting on their areas of
Even if it's just the same thing as the manager's probably much more frequent, but like some type of.
Right, but we're not saying how frequent, so it can be defined, but that'll be just requested by
Yeah, that can be by the council, they can say annually or.
Yeah,
You know, even biannually, like.
yeah, and if like,
years.
if there's,
Yeah.
They can say that, sure.
do you see any, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna, cause you said upon request, but I'm thinking that we should at least have something in there annually where things may.
One month prior to contract renewal?
But there's no
But there is no
contract.
contract
It's an indefinite contract, it's like.
I just wonder if we should specify that it's annual.
I mean, their contract may have a definite term, it's just not prescribed in the charter. It just says that the charter isn't, it's not defined by the charter how long their term is. It's not saying
I
that.
asked, I was told
contract
it's
won't.
indefinite.
Yeah, it's,
You could say annually or as determined by the council.
As written
You
into,
could even leave it open to,
I'm happy
or
leaving.
as written into their contract.
or as written in the contract or by ordinance or whatever, just
I think making it something like.
encouraging someone to look at this as they are writing the contract for this job would be.
Would this position or any of these positions be full-time at some point and not contract as the town grows?
Well, I mean, our attorney is almost full-time. I mean, she's getting, her firm works a lot for Erie. And I don't think are you trying to get to a W-2 situation or?
I don't know about these three positions in the sense of like, would they be brought on as staff members or not, or is that not something that happens?
What happens in larger cities with?
I mean, they would have their own like
On
dedicated
staff.
town attorney on staff, right?
It's,
Yeah, larger cities
but they're
do.
staff, but they're still, they
You did-
still report to the
To
council.
the council,
Yeah.
right.
So, but they're still considered like W-2 employees of the town,
I believe so, yes.
but they're still appointed and serve at the will of the council.
Right.
So this still, like the way it's written, it still allows for that.
Yeah, so you're just trying to build in a review process.
Right.
Without that can transition if that position transitions.
Yeah. So maybe just under, if we wanted to set like, allow the council to set the reporting schedule for all of the appointed officials, you could take the wording from that 7.3D from the Castle Pines, reporting regularly to the council on the functioning of all city matters under their purview.
And that's it,
And
I
then
mean, that's
like,
basically.
as determined by ordinance.
Yeah, sure.
And so like then the council can determine how often they want.
But isn't that what D says?
No, it just says regularly, and there's no like mechanism for how often regularly
Okay,
means,
so, but rather than a separate thing, just change the word regularly to annually or whatever,
or by ordinance.
or by ordinance.
Yeah.
No,
I don't.
I don't think
know
there's an
what
ordinance that says, I don't,
Because
do
of.
you see the town council passing an ordinance saying that something
Maybe.
should be reviewed? That doesn't seem like an ordinance to me.
Or on an annual basis
I would just say
from
that.
date of hire.
But then it's only annually, but if they need more frequent because there's an issue or a
At least
situation.
annually.
Yeah, as it's written, reporting regularly to the city council, it instructs the person to send a report. That's basically all that would have been needed. And I think that's fine, I don't know that we have to specify annually or by ordinance, but somehow that builds it into the contract when the contract's being written.
So I guess like if you say regularly, does that have any legal weight as far as what regularly entails? Can a council say, okay, it says regularly, so I want that every week? Cause that's overkill,
But we're also trying to avoid
yeah,
prescribing things.
The council should be able to decide what regular means.
right,
That's, so we don't tell them that it's annually. They decide if they wanna meet every week, then it's their
Okay.
prerogative, and then
so does anyone see any issues then with pulling D as written but adjusted for each of the positions into town attorney and municipal judge? Malcolm, does that seem reasonable?
I'm hearing replacing regularly with at least annually.
We don't have.
No,
to-
no, no,
There's
no,
not
leave the word
regularly.
regularly.
Okay.
Regularly is good, cause it'll be determined by each specific set of employees then.
Well, or you could do as determined by council instead of regularly.
I think you leave the word regularly and you let town council do what town council's supposed to do.
I agree.
And it could be
I
up to it could be the manager wants to report more often or less often, and that's fine. Like it just leaves it
Yeah, I think
flexible.
the point is to put it in there so that it catches the eye of somebody and it kicks this into gear at some point, but I don't think that we need to be so specific that.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, so that'll just go under the town attorney and municipal judge, not the town clerk, cause that's hired by manager. Okay, so any other,
And town prosecutor.
Well, we haven't
well,
talked about
yeah, we
that
haven't
yet.
talked about prosecutor yet. So this would go under 405, I guess, if we were gonna include a town prosecutor as appointed by council, right? So do we want to do that?
Well, the town prosecutor is appointed by council right now. It's just not in the Eagle Charter, I don't know.
Do we wanna, so basically if we wanna put it in here, do we wanna require there to be a town prosecutor?
There needs to be a town prosecutor.
I mean, technically, if it's not in the charter, there doesn't have to be one, right?
How would we prosecute crime?
Exactly. So requiring, yeah,
Is it?
I mean, I haven't read that far forward, is it in the courts, the municipal courts section?
So Louisville has a city prosecutor specifically with the other two in their charter.
yeah, that's
We
kind
seem
of
to
what,
be the only one of the 15 I looked at in detail that have it. But they do have it, so I think it's probably worth putting in.
cause like you said, we don't wanna leave it open for a situation that there is not.
I mean, it's essentially the same thing. In the reporting structure and the way that the hiring works, it's the same as the manager and the attorney and the the judge. So it should just be
Yeah.
copy paste, put the word prosecutor.
I agree.
And then
I
we
agree.
would add them into the list of officers as well,
Yes,
after the judge.
yes.
And they would also be included then in that new subsection D for regular reporting. Would they need to do they, I guess now, do they regularly report?
I think I think all the offices should have that type of thing.
And then when we get to ethics, at least in Louisville, it's the prosecutor has primary responsibility for administration of it.
Sorry, what
We
was
can
that?
come back to
That's a
that.
good call
Yeah.
out.
What was that, sorry?
When we get to ethics, it's the responsibility of the prosecutor to enforce the ethics.
Okay, perfect. So what is the verbiage we want for town prosecutor would be attorney licensed to practice law in state of Colorado, appointed to position by majority vote of the council.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the same stuff, we don't define.
Changing the word to town prosecutor.
Okay,
Yep.
everyone good with that? Okay,
There may be one other line, I'm just reading Louisville real fast, that the prosecutor shall prosecute actions brought in the municipal court,
Whoa,
or is that implied?
I mean, that's kind of implied. The municipal
It is-
judge doesn't have that clarification in this,
Okay,
in
so-
in their
Yeah.
judging things brought by.
That's fine. I just happened to notice it, so.
cool. And so we'll add that the Castle Pines subsection D for them as well.
Makes sense.
Okay, town clerk, anyone have? I guess the big question, hired by the town manager, we already had that discussion, anyone feel strongly that any other way rather than just being a hired by town manager? Nope, okay, we'll keep it as this. Hillary had one comment down in subsection 4.
Sure.
Requiring you to keep a stack of printed petitions, I guess? Is that what that says? That's kind of how I read it, that you'd have a stack of printed papers for.
I don't have a stack, I have a place where all those forms are stored, and then I can print them.
Well, I think what she's saying though is that sometimes the form of the petition, we require the petitioner to actually create it, like we had a petition for, what was that? Was it during the election, but
Is that the recount?
no, it was before that. But as a municipal clerk, she was not required to provide the petition. She was required to point them to the state website where it describes what the petition looks like.
And then they created
And then they give it to her.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
it was challenging signatures or something.
Yeah,
And then they give it to the clerk, and then the clerk consulted with our town attorney as to form and had to send it back and say, no, you missed this piece, and then they have to correct it, and they have a certain number of days. So that's what this one is saying.
and they can basically go to the state statute, and if they just copy it and put it in a form,
So
they would get it right, and this person just wasn't going to the statute to do that, so
So
they were
what-
having to make corrections.
What Hillary's saying is the Eagle Charter requires the clerk to keep these petitions on hand. And Hillary's saying,
We don't want to do that.
No, or you can just say, except when state statute leaves it up to the petitioner to create the form. Or something like that.
Is that what was the case in this scenario?
yes, that it's not it's not the town's responsibility, it's not the clerk's responsibility to create the petition for you.
So we remove this and then the town clerk can just point
Yeah.
petitioners to the place
Yeah.
to learn how to write a petition.
Would that be, I guess, if we remove this, would that be an implied duty of the town clerk? Cause then could the town clerk say, I'm not gonna help you fill this petition,
Or we,
or tell you
Well,
where
we're not really allowed to give them any sort of legal advice, so we can point them to where in the statute it says how to do it, the state statutes, but we can't provide them with any legal advice. So once they create it, we then have the town attorney review it as to form, and if they come back with corrections, then they have to go fix it and they have so many days to do that.
Okay.
And sometimes it goes back and forth a couple times before it's
Okay.
completed, so.
Whereas this would require you to have on hand
Have
every single
Every
type
form
of
that
petition.
exists, yes.
How would that be possible?
Exactly.
That's why she's calling it out.
You'd have
That's what the point is, yeah,
to
so.
print on demand or something like that.
Right. So
Maybe
right
just-
now, we just have them stored electronically, except for the ones that we don't create,
Yeah.
the ones that, that get from the state. We have all of the ones that we use for elections and that sort of stuff stored electronically. And when it gets time for an election, we print out packets and,
So Ash, you're just asking if we need to change the wording to say that the clerk will provide assistance in pointing you in the right direction.
No, or you could just say.
Is that what you were asking?
I was just trying to figure out like what Hillary's
Yeah.
comment here, I was kind of confused on how this read, so I wasn't sure like what it was actually saying.
But I think we can use the words Debbie just said, of forms
Commonly
owned
used.
owned by the town.
Well, then number 5 goes into a little bit more detail as well about the process for petitions.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a little different, I think. I think
That's just
what you're
saying-
that's the
saying-
legal part of it.
That's what
What,
by state statute is currently required. Eagle added this extra one.
Right, so subsection 4 there is extra and
Scratch.
requires the Eagle town clerk to maintain a stack of every single petition that can be filed with the town clerk.
Yeah, the thing is
And then
filed
it-
for any
Right,
purpose.
and then if they change,
You have to update
then
them.
you have to recycle and reprint.
Okay,
Well, no,
It's
I
a
mean,
burden on the town to keep all of these documents.
yeah,
wait.
it doesn't
It
say
doesn't say it has to be paper.
supply of forms, so
They have
but
to
that would
print
be
them for them.
formatting and
The-
everything.
the way I read supply of forms is like you have to have a ready supply of actual forms.
Oh, I read
Not
it as
just-
in like provide it to you.
Yeah, I think it's,
Like
I
I
read it as
can email
provide,
it to you.
shall have available.
I didn't
So
think
it
it
could
was
be-
like.
Well, I think it's printed on demand. I don't
doesn't
think you
give a
have a
quantity.
stock room.
But
It doesn't give a
regardless of
quantity,
that, we could probably just remove number 4.
I think we just scratch it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Cause you're already required to review sufficiency of petitions and as part of your election duties, you're required to have like the petitions to file for election, all of those other things.
Correct.
You're required to provide those. So the ones that you would most commonly be required to provide, you already have to by state statute. This is just way above and beyond that by having everything you might be able to accept. So yeah, I'm gonna propose strike 4.
I'm okay either way.
Cause I don't think there's any like,
The only thing that I would maybe
Okay.
change, if we kept that in there, then I would specify that it would be like petitions specific to elections. Like the petitions that we had to have signatures on.
that's already required, that's what I was asking.
It is?
Yeah,
Oh,
so she,
okay.
as part of town clerk duties,
Is
she
the-
has to
Is
provide.
the finance petition part of that?
That's a state. You
Well, yeah,
don't
you-
create those forms.
Right, but so you provided them to us, but you didn't have to, right? Technically.
The
No,
finance.
I think they have
Any- No, I didn't have to,
You didn't?
no.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we require the clerk to provide specific forms for election, but nothing else.
So
Oh, yeah, okay.
what I'm required to provide you with is the packet,
Oh, yeah,
the
that's what they're
nomination
talking about.
packets,
Right,
Yeah.
yes, that's
and
what
that's
I'm,
it, but
That's
not
what
the
I thought you were talking
financial
about.
forms.
but
the
not the
fin-
reporting forms, the campaign finance reporting forms.
But you did anyways this.
Oh, I thought they were specific to the town.
No, those are state.
Oh, okay.
That last one was the $0 one. That had this town logo on it.
Only because we put that on there.
That's what I meant. That's what I thought, that you,
Customized.
I've never seen the town logo.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting, like for the common provided forms, especially specifically for elections?
Yeah.
So would that put way too much burden, is that too broad?
Or you can just say,
need to provide?
I think that would be super helpful to know that there's a single point that for elections that are happening inside town, we can go to and trust that these are gonna be the right forms, right dates, right
Right.
reminders, right?
But you wouldn't be required then, like the way this is written, you'd be required to have forms for like recalls, referendums.
Any petition for anything. And
Yeah,
that's-
and I think that's not fair.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
But if we restrict it to all forms regarding elections specifically, Are there any others that we're not thinking of that might have
That's
to?
what I'm trying to think of in my
Yeah,
head.
can we just use the words that Hillary used, when the duty exists? And take out her not.
But again, she's saying that the duty to provide those financial reporting forms did not exist for
No, I
her.
know, I'm saying, the only ones they need to maintain are where the duty exists.
Right, but we wanna include ones where the duty does not exist, the financial
Like the
reporting forms
financial reporting.
specifically.
Can we,
I'm not
could we,
sure how to-
could we put in the just petitions for our municipal elections and check with, and you can check and we can check and see if there's additional forms that
Yeah,
we're
we
not
don't have,
thinking of that would be, that would cause a burden. But I mean, it seems like already you have everything, cause you sent it to us.
Yeah.
So,
like,
I actually had to go to the state website to get the
but you
campaign
got it.
But it's right there for everybody else to get as well, so that's what
I
she's
just think
saying.
it would be
That's
better,
what
I
she's
think
saying here.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I mean, I think in the situation where somebody is petitioning something different, that would be ridiculous for you to have to provide.
Right.
But I think for standard elections and standard requirements, I think the clerk should provide
I
those.
think it'll help the elections run more smoothly from all
Yeah.
the candidates.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be uniform. Everything that you're receiving from all of the candidates would be uniform, which would be beneficial, I would think, in processing that paperwork too.
so can we ask you then to find out if there are any other forms that we're not thinking of? Like I would worry that you'd have to then be required to hold on for all forms for like challenging elections and challenging signatures and all of that stuff. But we could specify, like if we write the wording, so it's only for like the nominal,
My statute right in front of me, I can tell you what it says.
so we'll leave it
Yeah, I can,
flexible for now.
I can review the election statutes to see
Okay.
what that says, but
So for now, we wanna leave it, we wanna strike 4 or modify 4
Modify
so that it only refers to election forms.
So there,
Why don't we include that in 7?
7, it was added by Hillary that
Ah,
says
yeah.
something about that.
Yeah,
Maybe
it
that's
could
where
be
we-
included.
But that's only required by state law, and she's not required to provide those forms by state law.
No, but we could,
You could say
Okay,
election duties as required by state law to include
and include.
and, yeah,
And inclusive of, yeah.
of all candidate election
Document.
documentation.
Well, and in theory, a lot of our election duties are gonna go to the county too.
Not,
no,
No.
no.
She still has to work with the county to
I
get
still have
our
to
stuff.
work with the county, I still have to count signatures,
Okay.
or count the number of signatures you get. I still have to,
The preliminary stuff.
I have to verify
So
signatures.
what if we just called it preliminary election?
But it's all, it's
No,
also
it's
finance,
exactly-
I think we're also asking for finance stuff
So it's
too.
complete,
Campaign
and
finance,
certify
yeah.
your
you're asking
results
for
and
from
stuff.
beginning to end of the cycle.
Okay.
It's the same form.
We'll note that we wanna modify this section 4 so that some forms are required to be maintained and provided, having to do with the nominal conducting of an election,
No,
What kind of election?
yeah,
municipal elections.
So
And-
candidate elections
Right.
for,
Candidate right, so not like recall or
Council member.
referendum and stuff like that.
but recall is you can recall a candidate, can you not?
Yeah, but he's saying a candidate election, not a recall election.
Yeah, just only for the candidate, a nominal candidate election, municipal election. So not like anything like town, like citizen initiatives and stuff like that. You wouldn't be required to keep those. Just the ones regarding nominal conducting of a candidate election. And then you find out if there's any other
I can do that.
forms that we're not thinking of.
Or, I'm not sure I wanna just strike 4, as people said, and just including in election duties, it doesn't have to be as required by state law. Or we could put the forms in there, if we're really concerned about election, you could put everything about election in one item.
Okay. Yeah, I think once we know for sure what
Yeah.
will be required, we can reword this section. But I'm with you that having some of that provision will help
Yep.
local elections run more smoothly. Okay. Speaking of 7, are we good with adding that?
Yes.
I like it.
Is it just going to say election duties as required by state law?
Yeah,
Sort of thing? Okay.
just as she has it
Well,
written.
maybe, okay. Let's wait and see what comes back with 4.
as we go into 8, are we done with 7?
Yeah, I think everyone was okay with 7, so.
Can you explain what the town clerk is doing with regards to the cemetery right now, and if that's something that should be written into here?
The cemetery,
It's in our ordinance,
It's okay,
it's,
so,
that's,
so perform other duties as prescribed and then by ordinance.
yeah.
Sorry, what's happening with the cemetery?
The town clerk is responsible for the record keeping and the oversight of the town cemetery.
Okay.
We have outsourced it and we have a company that is their livelihood. And they now do the work for us in consultation with us to take care of
Is it super active? I didn't even.
it. It can be,
it can
usually
be.
on a Friday afternoon.
especially at the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
It becomes long and involved because you get people who call and go, hey, I wanna buy a couple plots. And so you give them all the information and then, okay, well, we'll get back to you. And then you have to keep that somewhere. And then they don't call you back for months on end, and meanwhile, you've given those plots away and then they want some other plots.
Got it.
Or they want those plots and I've already given them to somebody else. Because we were doing them in succession, we were actually starting to assign them because it was becoming very complicated because the cemetery's old and some of the records aren't.
And yeah, you
The
can't.
records are.
Honestly, I didn't even think there was still plots of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna call you
I'm
tomorrow.
concerned.
I'm
You have plans off somebody?
I'll give you the number of who you call.
And then the ordinance, so there is an ordinance that we passed this last year about
The care?
complaints. We just did that, was it,
Campaign
Is that for the cemetery?
no, complaints to the state for election stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Campaign finance.
Yeah, the campaign finance, so the state doesn't have the capacity to review complaints about campaign finance. So they
For
basically just
municipal.
don't do it,
So now
There's
we
not a
do.
new ordinance saying that you do it.
that I can do it, yeah.
Alright, anyway, 8 takes care of ordinance, which is what,
Right.
I mean, I know that the clerk does a whole lot more than what's already listed here. and
Yes.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
that state
burdensome.
law is doing a lot of heavy lifting, the state law part of number 8, right? Okay, so are we good with 405, soon to be 406, I guess? If we add prosecute. Okay? Anything else? No? Town departments.
But do we wanna put in as 406,
I think I put town prosecutor as 405
okay, good enough.
and pushed it, cause those are all the appointed ones in
Sounds
order of succession. Okay, town departments. Anything anyone had here? Based on previous, the at-will employees of, all of these people would be considered at-will employees of the town. Then we previously established that the town manager would hire them so that they would be at-will under, I guess, at the discretion of the town manager, right? Since you'd be the one hiring them, you'd be the one who would determine to fire them. And I think Hillary had a comment there regarding that Colorado revised statute. Supersedes conflict,
So with
okay.
at will, the manager can fire at any point. But the state law says that a hearing is required.
Well, for
So-
offices.
So yeah, this is where she was being specific about the word town officers. So if we're including the 3 appointed officials as town officers, we would need to be careful about application of this state statute that she refers to there. Because that one says officers of the town can be removed by the town manager or something, right?
Yes.
Yes. Oh no, specifies removal of officers of the town as for cause and only following a hearing. So that means, yeah.
Isn't she taking that out and putting in as to department heads?
Right, so it only refers to,
She doesn't want that CRS in here because there's conflicting definitions.
Because
but only as
department
to,
heads aren't considered officers, is that?
Right.
Yeah, no, because 31-4307, which is referred to here, defines the removal of officers, and within there, you could define the prosecutor, attorney and judge as that, and this is removing that confusion and saying it's only the people that the town manager hired, that is the department heads of the departments that he or she creates.
okay. So, yeah, so
Hold on.
this section is trying to define who the town manager can fire at will. Whereas the state statute says officers of the town without a definition. And so if a department head would be considered an officer of the town, it would require a formal hearing and the town council to remove them. Whereas the way it's written now, the way Hillary has amended it, the department heads hired by the town manager can be removed by the town manager at will, but only in regards, and it supersedes the state statute, but only in regards to department heads,
Yes.
not officers of the town.
Yes.
Department heads aren't officers.
Right.
Now, number one though, backing up a little bit, the council may by ordinance create, consolidate, or dissolve any town department. Does that mean the council may dissolve Parks and Rec?
Yes.
And that means that that person is de facto fired,
Yeah, okay.
because their position no longer exists.
Does
But
that mean
it's
the council may create the cemetery department?
Sorry, Amy?
Well, but then it says that all departments and department heads are under the supervision and control and that he hires them, so how can the council dissolve a department?
They have that authority, and the
yeah.
manager has
It's
to
not
deal with
specific to the employee though.
It's the whole department.
Yeah, it would be the whole department.
So we'll
Like the
remove the parks.
council has the authority to approve the budget, and if they decide they don't wanna budget for something and they wanna dissolve the department, they do that.
So technically, they could dissolve the Parks and Rec department, create a Recs and Parks department, force someone else to be hired.
They're the governing body, they should have that authority to.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But there's
to me.
nothing that would prevent the town manager from hiring the exact same people,
Exactly,
so,
because it's up to their discretion.
yes. To the useless
Depending where
effort.
you're hired, but
Until the town manager gets fired.
I don't think that they would dissolve an entire, hopefully they wouldn't be dissolving entire
But they would,
departments
they,
just to get rid of staff.
Exactly.
Now you see why we want all of them to operate as a group, you know? There's some healthiness in a group decision.
I think it's good as written, because yeah, they need to be able to remove any town department. And if they do it just to get rid of someone, then
Hopefully that's.
that's all screwed up already.
That's a very expensive way of doing it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. I would hope the people that were voting in are doing
Yes.
that.
I think this is designed for as conditions change, not
Yes.
just targets or.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yes. That's how I was.
Yeah.
Okay, so leaving it as written with taking into account Hillary's modifications
Yes.
for
Yes.
406.
And I propose we delay Article 5 to the next meeting.
Okay,
Agreed.
what did we have set for next meeting then? Let's see.
Oh, I printed it, but I forgot to bring it.
It's okay, I've got it.
Ordinances.
Ordinances, ooh, that's another big one.
That's a very big one.
Debbie's here for that anyway.
I'm here anyway.
Okay. Who else is, that's gonna be?
I would point out that we did not, somehow when we scheduled January, we left the Thursday where we're in the boardroom for public comment as no other topic.
Oh, yeah,
So that would serve as a catch-up point.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good,
We're
yeah.
gonna each book.
And cause we're gonna have to, we have a bunch of go backs,
Yeah.
like the vacancy section.
Yeah.
Once we have something to go on, we can defer that, not next meeting, but for the 19th. So,
And that is a night that Hillary is not here.
yeah, so that's good. We won't be wasting her time. Okay, so next week she'll be here, right? We'll have hopefully more topics here for more feedback from her. And then, okay, so let me see where we're at for today. We're stopping at 4, right, leaving 5 till next time, and then we'll have ordinances, which will probably run into the next one. And we can then also handle the vacancy section. Okay, let's see, where's my agenda? So if no one else has any reviews, I'm gonna go back through our drafting decisions, just as our summary. Okay, so back in section 311, subsection 3. That was the executive sessions. We are going to change the council, town administrator, and town attorney can attend any meeting, council can invite any relevant others. And then we removed the word mayor because he falls under the council.
Yep.
As we will be defining in a future definition section. 312 will add a new section on vacancies, what defines a vacancy, and 313 will be how to fill that vacancy.
I've sent it, but the internet is dead, so.
Okay, so Adam
Shut down after the.
has sent that out. We can massage it and we'll bring that back for discussion on the 19th meeting, our public comment meeting, as one of our filler topics. Section 401, subsection 4, we're gonna add the definition of an emergency from the Louisville Charter, as Malcolm had read out. We wanted to know from Hillary if reasonable is a legally defined term with any sort of weight, or is it just a lawful term? We're going to define the line of succession in subsection 5 of 401, which will follow the Louisville Charter order, going through seniority, then alphabetical order. So mayor, mayor pro tem, seniority, alphabetical order, and then through the department heads, through the town officers, which are the 4 positions appointed by the council, which will be manager, town attorney, judge, municipal judge, and the town prosecutor. And then we will define those as the town officers in a definition section. Then 405, which is our new town prosecutor section, we'll just copy paste the 403 and 404 wording, and add in to all 3 of those that subsection D from the Castle Pines Charter about reporting regularly to the council.
Can I add just one thought there?
Yeah.
Those 3 positions are contract positions.
Mhm.
His is the only full-time position.
Right.
That was part of Hillary's point, was having a full-time employee as the line of succession. Being contract, is that?
Well, they may not be contract.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but they currently are. I'll throw that out there and leave it at that.
Okay, then yeah, that might be a question for Hillary as well, as like, what is the legality of having a town contracted employee in the line of succession?
Good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah. Okay, in section 402, we are going to replace completely into this subsection 7 of Castle Pines. And subsection E in in section 7.3, Malcolm will have wording to send out to the rest of us about the developing a plan and line of succession. We'll wanna add definitions for what are administrative personnel and consultants in our definition section. for the purposes of 7.4 in the Castle Pines Charter. Then 405, which will be the new section 406, we wanted to add wording under subsection 4 for having the forms for the nominal conducting of candidate elections only. And so that removes that undue burden from the Eagle Charter. Section 7, we like Hillary's wording on how those other state election duties. And then 406 becomes the new subsection 407.
Good job.
That's it.
Sounds good.
That's our recap. If there's no other last minute business, I'll call for adjournment.
Can I,
Oh, sorry.
we did have our GIS department, Malcolm got some numbers of population from the 2020 census by neighborhood. And our GIS department was able to create these forms, or these maps. Sarah did get it electronically this morning, but yeah, she was gonna pull this together for you guys and maybe offer some districting, but she's ill. So I had some big ones up, but there's one for each of you guys if you wanna take one home and you can look at it and it's got the numbers.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have these digitally as well?
I can send them out to you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
They're PDFs. I also did create a quick spreadsheet that just takes this information down here. If you wanted to play around with numbering for districts, to get equal numbers that I can.
know who the single person.
So how did you have that set up?
It's the guy that carves the things.
I took the number,
Is he still there?
I took
That's
those
right,
over
I
just
forgot
from an
about him.
Excel file. So
Okay.
if you wanted to go like, okay, we want 3 districts and we took these together based on the map, if you guys wanna play around.
Yeah, if you could send that, that would be helpful, I think. Gives us more homework, right?
Yes, more homework for districts, since you guys need to revisit that, so.
Thanks, Amy.
Well,
Okay.
thank you to our newest GIS person that got hired, she was able to pull that
Thanks,
together.
Village GIS.
Thanks, Riley.
Riley? Thank you, Riley. Okay, I think that concludes our business, unless anyone else has any last minute. On the room? No? Alright, I'll call for adjournment. Second, alright, we're good. Thank everyone.